Chapter 284, Peeling the Top. In truth, there are two ways to reach the soul formation stage. The first method is to follow someone else's footsteps and copy their domain. This method is much easier than the second one, but the difficult part is that not many soul formation cultivators are willing to display their domain. Only peak nascent soul cultivators and large sects are given the privilege to see them. The second method is to completely rely on yourself to try to comprehend the heavens to find your own domain. This method is very difficult. It requires a lot of perseverance and luck to succeed. But once you have found your own domain, you will be much stronger than those that went with the first method. In general, only those who can obtain their own domain after trying for a long time choose the first method. After all, there is a huge difference in power between the two methods. This gap is something that is almost impossible to close, whether it is at the start or far in the future. However, not many people can comprehend their own domain, so a majority of cultivators choose the first method. This is why some soul formation cultivators are killed, and others can live on peacefully. The messenger back in Zhao chose the first method, which is why he decided to run after seeing Wang Lin's magic treasure. However, nothing is absolute, as there are cultivators who choose the first method who manage to break through to the soul transformation stage, but there are simply too few of these people, and they are very weak among soul transformation cultivators. Thus, the people who choose the first method focus on obtaining pills to raise their cultivation level, but how could pills that contain celestial spiritual energy be so easy to obtain? Wang Lin flew in the rain until he arrived at the ancient transfer array. The transfer array lit up, and his body disappeared. This time, Wang Lin didn't stop at all and used his full speed to move to the next transfer array. 1 month later, waves of spiritual energy shot up in a valley at the edge of Zhao. As the spiritual energy disappeared, a young man walked out. It was Wang Lin. Looking at the land before him, Wang Lin felt a burst of melancholy. Zhao wasn't very big. With just his divine sense, he was easily able to see everything that was happening. After Wang Lin's killing spree, the cultivators of Zhao had weakened greatly, especially with the deaths of several late-stage nascent soul cultivators. This was a huge blow to Zhao. In these past few decades, all of the sect's doors were closed. Among the cultivators of Zhao, rumors of Wang Lin were still being spread even now. Countless cultivators were still terrified by the stories, and those that saw Wang Lin would still wake up in the middle of the night covered in cold sweat. As for the Heaven-S Tower in the middle of Zhao, it was still empty. After pondering for a while, Wang Lin flew toward where the former Xianxia sect was, which was now the Xuandao sect's home. He entered the cultivation world here, so he will reach the soul formation stage here too. When his figure appeared outside of the Xuandao sect, he saw white fog covering the entire sect. Even the little passage up the mountain was blocked. The Xuandao sect had long closed its doors and no longer communicated with the outside. Wang Lin let out a sigh. Instead of making a commotion to force people to come out, he disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already at the back mountain of the Xuandao sect. The back mountain where he went through 4 years of closed-door cultivation was still there. There were a few cultivators around, but their expressions were very lethargic and depressed. How could they notice Wang Lin's presence? Wang Lin found the cave he had cultivated in back then and walked into it. There was no one inside the cave. Once Wang Lin went inside, the rock at the entrance slowly fell. Wang Lin sat cross-legged inside the cave and examined its interior. Familiar memories entered his mind. He let out a sigh and began to cultivate. 10 days later, Wang Lin finished tuning his body. His hand formed a seal and he pressed it on his stomach. The color of his face changed between red and green, and his body soon split into two. His original body came out of his avatar with a head of white hair over his shoulders, a grin, and a purple star that released an evil light. This original body's cultivation level was still at the late stage of core formation. His G realm hadn't evolved, so his original body's cultivation level still couldn't improve. Even though he could boost his G realm to the nascent soul level when he was fused together with his avatar, there were still limitations and drawbacks, so it was not a long-term solution. As for his avatar, it was about to reach the soul formation stage. After fusing with his original body, this avatar's one flaw of only having 30 years to live disappeared, so now it was no different from his original body. At this moment, he was about to reach the soul formation stage, and if he was still fused with his original body, it would interfere with the process of breaking through. Wang Lin began to ponder. If his original body's cultivation stayed the same, then there would be too many drawbacks. He had already started to consider this matter several years ago, but couldn't make a decision. However, his understanding of the life and death domain had increased greatly, especially after the event at the shrine. His hesitant heart finally made a decision. His original body couldn't walk the same path as his avatar, so the Jai realm had to be separated from it. The road of the ancient god was the path that the original body should be walked. Wang Lin pondered for a little while before both of his bodies sat down. Both bodies formed seals with their hands, causing green smoke to slowly surround them. The first thing he needed to do was shatter the cultivation of his original body. Slivers of spiritual energy spread out from the original body. There were traces of pain on the original body's face, but he was determined to continue. Finally, drops of blood oozed out of the original body's pores. This red liquid didn't stick to the body. It formed beads of blood around it. Gradually, the number of these beads of blood increased. The original body's face became even more pale, and his cultivation level started to drop from the late stage of core formation. 10 days later, the original body looked older, and his cultivation level had dropped to early stage core formation. The beads of blood had already formed a red ring around the original body. Then, with a crisp, crackling sound, the original body's core shattered and turned into even more powerful spiritual energy that raged through his body like a group of runaway horses. Just at this moment, the avatar's eyes lit up and it pointed a finger at the original body's brow. The spiritual energy inside the original body seemed to have found a release point and poured out from the brow. This spiritual power gathered at the avatar's finger. Soon, all of the spiritual energy condensed into a silver liquid. The original body suddenly grew much weaker, but its eyes were still calm. Then, slivers of spiritual energy came from the original body's flesh and bones. This spiritual energy moved to the original body's dantian and slowly formed a ring. This was the foundation of a cultivator, which was also the symbol of a foundation establishment cultivator. This ring slowly became more solid and became even brighter and brighter. This time, the avatar pointed at the original body's dantian. The original body shook as the ring shattered into spiritual energy and gathered at the fingertip of the avatar. Then the original body's cultivation level dropped rapidly. 14th layer of QI condensation, 13th layer, 12th layer, 8th layer, 6th layer, all the way until the 1st layer. At this moment, all of the spiritual energy in the original body disappeared. His whole body suddenly fell over, leaned against the wall, and began to breathe rapidly. However, this entire time, its eyes were still calm. In those eyes, a bolt of red lightning flashed. The avatar took a deep breath. This time, his finger pointed to the spot between the original body's eyes. Suddenly, that ray of red lightning flew out. Just as it was about to leave through one of the walls, the avatar let out a roar. His hand moved, and rings of light trapped the red lightning. He reached out to grab it. The red lightning struggled for a bit before finally giving up and stopped moving. The avatar grabbed the red lightning and morphed it into a drop of blood before putting it into his bag of holding. This drop of blood was the G realm. The original body gave up its cultivation to force the G realm out, completely turning it into a magic treasure-like existence. Shortly after, the original body barely managed to sit up straight and closed his eyes. At this moment, the avatar flicked the spiritual energy from the foundation ring into the original body. Then the liquid formed by the core was also sent into the original body. The boundless spiritual energy surged through the original body, but that body had no intentions of cultivating again. Instead, the original body started using the ancient god's tactic. Under its power, all of the spiritual energy was absorbed by the body's flesh and bones. During the process of absorbing the spiritual energy, bits of a red substance entered the original body from the red ring. This process lasted a long time. At this moment, Wang Lin's original body and avatar walked down two very different paths. The original body was focused on refining the body, walking down the path of the ancient gods. The avatar focused on the inside, walking down the path of the heavens. Both were Wang Lin's bodies, without any difference, but before he reaches a certain point, his two bodies can be fused together for a long period of time. But once he fuses, his power will increase several-fold. 5,000 words in a major chapter. Seizing the moment when brothers and sisters feel comfortable, Lio wishes for the like button for the video, for sharing, for channel follows without hesitation. Chapter 285. Point of Transformation. A series of changes were happening within the original body. In truth, the original body had already met the requirements to become a one-star ancient god. As a result, it was already walking on the path of the ancient gods, but due to Wang Lin's indecision before, it caused that path to be incredibly difficult. But after the enlightenment in the old shrine, he was able to understand the mysteries of his life and death domain. As a result, Wang Lin decided to have his original body walk the path of the ancient gods. Wang Lin looked at his original body, which was currently cultivating. He opened his bag of holding and took out several blood drops filled with killing intent, and then pointed at the original body's brow. The blood drops flew into the original body one by one. The original body's white hair immediately turned red, and his killing intent reached its peak. At this moment, the original body seemed a bit similar to Taysen from the land of the ancient god. After a long time, the original body finished absorbing all the spiritual energy and opened his eyes. His eyes had no pupils. They were only two masses of red. Combined with the red hair, he didn't look human. Instead, he looked like an ancient demon. Wang Lin and his original body both let out a faint smiles. However, their smiles would shock anyone who saw them. The original body's smile was filled with the sense of being far above others, while the avatar's smile was filled with bloodlust. Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and took out several hundred bottles of pills. This was a large majority of the pills Li Muwan had given him back then. The moment those pills appeared, the original body opened its mouth. All of the bottles broke as the pills flew into its mouth, turned into spiritual energy, and moved through its body. The ancient god's tactic worked frantically inside his body to absorb all of the spiritual energy from the pills. Gradually, the original body became even harder and had a slightly metallic sheen. Finally, golden threads came out of the original body's pores and his clothes all disappeared as well. The number of golden threads increased as more pills entered his mouth and the ancient god's tactic operated. Finally, the golden threads intertwined and formed a golden cocoon. Waves of pressure came out of the golden cocoon. The beating sound of a powerful heart come from inside the cocoon. However, no one but the avatar could hear this sound. The avatar stared at the golden cocoon the original body was in and sat down to guard it. 13 days later, the beating inside the golden cocoon became even louder. It was like a beating drum. Finally, when that sound reached its peak, a crack appeared on the golden cocoon. More and more cracks appeared, and the cracks grew larger and larger. Finally, the cocoon was covered in cracks and a very blinding purple light leaked through them. Crisp crackling sounds came from the golden cocoon, then large chunks of the cocoon's shell fell off. Then a bronze-colored arm reached out from inside the golden cocoon. Reveal character. Subsequently, his original body walked out of the golden cocoon. His red hair that looked like flowing blood was behind his shoulders, and the two purple stars on his forehead slowly rotated in a circle. His eyes were no longer red and had darkened a lot, but if one looked closely, it looked as if his eyes contained seas of blood. The original body managed to reach the second transformation of the ancient god after absorbing his original body's cultivation and countless pills. The amount of spiritual energy needed for an ancient god to undergo transformation now was countless times the amount required before. After the original body appeared, it silently pondered and looked at the avatar. The avatar slapped his bag of holding and took out a flying sword. He pointed at the original body and the flying sword flew at it. The original body didn't T-block. It let the flying sword attack it. At the moment of impact, there was a sound of two metal objects colliding. Sounds of two metal objects hitting each other continued and even sparks appeared. The original body casually reached and grabbed the flying sword. It tightened its hold and with a crack, the flying sword broke into pieces and became useless metal. The original body and avatar both let out smiles of satisfaction. After pondering a little, the original body sank into the ground and disappeared. According to the memories of the ancient god, if a baby ancient god hasn't been tested at the center of the planet, then he will never become a true ancient god. When Wang Lin decided on this road, he had already made his decision. The original body continued to sink into the earth until it reached a point where the pressure would be too powerful even for cultivators. However, with the help of the ancient god's tactic, The original body didn't feel anything and continued to descend. Even Wang Lin wasn't sure how far it had descended, but his original body still hadn't reached the center of Suzaku. He made a rough estimate and believed that he was 1/6 of the way there. However, this was already the limit of the original body. If he were to continue to descend, his body would collapse. After all, in ancient times, the adult ancient gods would surround the baby ancient god in a drop of their blood to provide for the baby and help protect the baby from the powerful pressure at the center of the planet. The original body sat down cross-legged and began to quietly cultivate. Unless the avatar encounters a life and death situation, it wouldn't move. It would continue to cultivate. Aside from that, the only movement the original body would make was go down toward the center of Suzaku to complete the way of the ancient god. But the path to become a real ancient god was simply too hard. The ancient gods went through 3 losses and 7 trials. Every single time was a life and death test. It would be impossible to complete it all without spending a very large amount of time. What is even more unbearable compared to all of this is the solitude. Generate now. One must cultivate in solitude, endure the solitude, and finally enjoy the solitude. Also, the disappearance of the ancient gods weighed on Wang Lin's heart like a giant rock. In ancient times, after Tu-Si died, some unimaginable things happened that caused the celestial realm to be destroyed. The ancient celestials went extinct, the ancient gods went extinct, and this even affected the ancient cultivation world, causing the cultivation union to appear. Although all of those things were very distant from Wang Lin, once someone learns that Wang Lin was cultivating the path of the ancient gods, those things might not be so distant anymore. Therefore, Wang Lin could not let anyone know that he had an original body following the path of the ancient gods. Otherwise, there would be disaster coming his way. After the original body left, Wang Lin's avatar looked up while inside the cave. His gaze seemed to be able to see through the cave walls and saw the sky above it. Wang Lin softly said the 2 words, "Soul formation." He stretched out his arms as his life and death domain began to slowly spread. It covered the entire back mountain. It covered the Xuan sect and continued to spread. Slowly, the life and death domain continued to spread until it covered all of Zhao. He slowly closed his eyes as he comprehended the laws of the heavens in the life and death domain. At this moment, whether it was the mortals or cultivators, everyone felt something in their hearts. The mortals could only experience a mysterious feeling, but all of the cultivators began to panic. The expressions of the few nascent soul cultivators in Zhao greatly changed, and they flew out from their various sects to check what was going on. However, with their cultivation levels, they would only feel and not locate where it was coming from. Not to mention them, even the few remaining nascent soul cultivators in the Xuan sect didn't know that the source of this feeling was in their back mountain. At this moment, Wang Lin felt what everyone was feeling. The feelings of panic and daze, confusion and shock, and all these various other feelings were laid out before him. Gradually, the clouds disappeared until there were no clouds or wind in the entire country of Zhao. Only a sense of peace was left. In this peace, all of the mortals and cultivators affected by the life and death domain calmed down. In the mortal world, from the king to the peasants, everyone seemed to have lost control of themselves as they bowed toward one direction. This was even true for cultivators, no matter what cultivation level they had reached. As the sense of calmness spread, a few of the nascent soul cultivators noticed that this heavenly change was coming from the Xuan sect. The Xuan sect was now empty after the few nascent soul cultivators ordered everyone else to leave. All of the disciples of the Xuan sect were now kneeling outside the sect. These nascent soul cultivators were all very nervous as they had a guess as to what was going on. That guess was that there was a guest reaching the soul formation stage here, but this guess was too unbelievable and it caused them to be very nervous. Although they had never experienced these kinds of changes in the heavens before, they had read about them in ancient records. It was a bit different from the records, but this kind of change could only happen when someone was reaching the soul formation stage. At this moment, one question appeared in the remaining nascent soul cultivators' minds. Who the hell was reaching the soul formation stage here? Why did this person choose to do it here? Could this person be someone from Zhao? This speculation from the people that vaguely understood what was happening caused them to become extremely excited. This type of excitement was something they had never felt before. Wang Lin sat cross-legged inside the cave, and at this moment his body was emitting a rainbow-colored light. In this light, Wang Lin had the air of an immortal. Gradually, a little person that looked exactly like Wang Lin flew out from his forehead. This was his nascent soul. Waking up early today, not updating on time even earlier. Leo went to deal with household chores, unsure what time I'll be back this afternoon. The new chapter tonight might be late. Chapter 286, Beginning Transformation. The nascent soul slowly floated upward until it completely left Wang Lin's body. The nascent soul also opened its arms and remained in the same position as the body. The spiritual energy in the heavens suddenly found an outlet. It rapidly gathered around Wang Lin and formed a giant vortex in the back mountain of the Xuan Dao sect. This vortex was now visible to everyone near it. It looked like a funnel and grew larger and larger at the top. Then the sky changed as a giant black hole appeared in the cloudless sky. Inside the black hole, one could see stars shining. Wang Lin seemed to notice, and his nascent soul raised its head. Its gaze pierced through the cave and stared into the black hole. His heart immediately shook. He remembered this scene from the ancient god's memory. This was the space outside of planet Suzaku. When a cultivator reaches the soul formation stage, their nascent soul will go through a series of changes. This process requires a large amount of spiritual energy. During this process, one can use their domain to open up a passage to the sky and use that boundless spiritual energy to help them reach the soul formation stage. This is a chance every cultivator has when they reach the soul formation stage. The appearance of the black hole was the final confirmation to every cultivator who had read the record. It was certain that there was indeed someone reaching the soul formation stage in Zhao. The spiritual energy poured out of the black hole like a flash flood and was sucked up by the vortex. Then it underwent a series of changes before entering Wang Lin's body. The nascent soul started to slowly emit a rainbow-colored light. The light became brighter and brighter until it covered the entire back mountain. Soon, the entire Xuan Dao sect was covered in this rainbow-colored light. At this moment, the surrounding cultivators became filled with excitement and devotion as their eyes became filled with a hot craze. For them, it was a great honor and luck to be able to watch someone reach the soul formation stage in their lifetime. It was also great for their cultivation. However, this was not the reason Wang Lin chose to reach the soul formation stage in Zhao. It was simply because he felt a strange urge to. The nascent soul cultivators were the ones who received the greatest benefits as their nascent souls seemed to be undergoing changes. All their nascent souls flew out of their bodies and began to cultivate. As Wang Lin's nascent soul absorbed more spiritual energy, the rainbow-colored light became even stronger. His nascent soul also began to float up higher above his head. The appearance of the black hole above Zhao caused the mortals to become even more pious. It was as if a heavenly pressure had washed over them, removing all distractions, and letting them focus on their respect for this heavenly pressure. The closer the mortals were to the black hole, the more they were affected. This was especially true for the village right next to the Xuan Dao sect, as every child was staring dumbfoundedly at the black hole. If there was a cultivator around, they would be able to see a faint belt of light above their foreheads that connected to the black hole. In reality, whenever a cultivator is about to reach the soul formation stage in a rank cultivation country, they return to their own country. Every time a cultivator reaches the soul formation stage, the black hole that appears causes the mortals around it to change. Those without a spirit root can gain one. This is one of the reasons why rank 4 cultivation countries can completely suppress rank 3 cultivation countries. Every time a cultivator reaches the soul formation stage, they produce a lot of mortals who can cultivate as well. Wang Lin didn't know any of this. At this moment, he had completely fused with his life and death domain to experience the laws of the heavens. As more and more spiritual energy entered Wang Lin's nascent soul, his nascent soul rose higher and higher. The stone wall didn't stop his nascent soul at all, and his nascent soul slowly flew out of the back mountain. At this moment, all of the surrounding cultivators saw something they would never forget. They saw a mini-person who was emanating a rainbow-colored light and sitting cross-legged slowly rise into the air. The moment the nascent soul appeared, the surrounding spiritual energy rushed toward the nascent soul. The nascent soul's hand also began to rapidly form different seals. This process lasted for a long time. Wang Lin's nascent soul began to form the seals even faster as spiritual energy poured into him. He eventually started producing afterimages. The rainbow-colored light around the nascent soul gradually began to converge back into it until it was completely contained within the nascent soul. Shortly after, Wang Lin's nascent soul became transparent, as if it would disappear at any time. At this moment, the black hole in the sky spat out the last bit of spiritual energy, then gradually closed and disappeared. The last bit of spiritual energy descended like a dragon and entered the nascent soul. At this moment, slivers of strange energy came out of the nascent soul. The entire nascent soul changed from transparent to solid again. It gradually grew until it was the size of a normal person. If one looked closely at it, they would see that his nascent soul looked exactly like his body. At this point, the nascent soul opened its eyes. There were no emotions inside them. They looked like ordinary people's eyes, but waves of coldness rolled out of them. At this moment, everyone who saw this nascent soul saw an illusion showing that after this nascent soul had undergone a series of changes, it had become a mysterious existence that surpassed cultivators. Its gaze seemed to be directed at the earth, and no matter what it looked at, its gaze was always cold, as if there was nothing in this world that would interest it. The most important part of the soul formation stage is that the nascent soul becomes the primary soul. If the primary soul remains, then the body will remain forever, just like the laws of the heavens. At this moment, Wang Lin's nascent soul underwent a change with all the spiritual energy from reaching the soul formation stage and changed into a primary soul. If one compares a nascent soul to a child, then the primary soul is like an adult that has gained the ability to use the power of the heavens. This is what makes soul formation cultivators so fearsome. A soul formation cultivator is able to contain the power of their domain in their attacks because of their primary soul. The primary soul is formed with the nascent soul as the base and empowered by the spiritual energy of the heavens. It is because of the existence of the primary soul that soul formation cultivators are far stronger than nascent soul cultivators. This is the same reason why nascent soul cultivators are so much stronger than core formation cultivators. The difference between the realms is a gap that can be crossed. Mortals breathed in the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth, causing their bodies to change so they could better cultivate spiritual energy. Gradually, as the body gathers more and more spiritual energy, it reaches a certain stage, then the body undergoes a change in quality. This change is called foundation establishment. According to the ways of cultivation, one can have external help when reaching the foundation establishment stage. One must try again themselves to truthfully walk the heaven-defying path of cultivation. However, reaching the foundation establishment stage is too hard, which is why heaven-defying pills like the foundation establishment pill were created. Now, after a long time, there are very few people who can reach the foundation establishment stage without the help of a foundation establishment pill. Although this doesn't follow the standards of the heavens, the Cultivation Union said that the heavens are dead, so there is no need to defy them. Because a long time has passed, people forgot about this matter. After one reaches the foundation establishment stage, their body becomes even more accustomed to cultivating spiritual energy and can contain more spiritual energy. However, at a certain point, one will reach another bottleneck. As such, the core formation stage came to be. The goal of the core formation stage is to compress the spiritual energy in one's body again and again until the intangible spiritual energy becomes tangible. Then it goes from tangible to liquid, and finally, from liquid to solid, all to form one's core. This process is very difficult for cultivators, but it is not impossible. If one has enough talent, it's a lot easier. The core eases the load on the body and allows one to absorb more spiritual energy. As more and more spiritual energy is gathered, some of it goes into the core, causing the core to become more solid. The amount of spiritual energy condensed in the core is unimaginable. This is why core formation cultivators are like heavenly beings to foundation establishment cultivators. After all, the amount of spiritual energy core formation cultivators have is unimaginable for foundation establishment cultivators. After a cultivator forms their core and continues to cultivate, they will reach another bottleneck. This is the late stage of core formation. At this point, simply cultivating spiritual energy is no longer enough. This is when the cultivator undergoes a second quality change. This isn't a complete quality change, but for cultivators, it is a huge change. This is the first step to truly become a heaven-defying cultivator. The core shatters and the nascent soul is born. Nascent soul has the word nascent because it is the beginning of the path of cultivation. The core shattering and birth of the nascent soul is a mysterious change. It is like the breath of a baby in the mortal world. The core is like a mother who is pregnant. When it breaks, it will give life to a baby. This is how the phrase nascent soul came to be. The shattering of the core and the birth of the nascent soul is a symbol of rebirth. The amount of spiritual energy a nascent soul can absorb is not even in the same realm as a core. After obtaining a nascent soul, one has the ability to escape death, to fight the heavens, and to walk down the heaven-defying path. Once the nascent soul reaches a certain stage, it is time for the soul formation stage. The talent required to reach the soul formation stage isn't high, as what the soul formation stage requires is comprehension of the heavens. Finally, the weekend is here, and Leo can finally sleep to his heart's content, not needing to get up early to take the daughter to school. Been burning the midnight oil these past few days, utterly exhausted. Chapter 287, Reincarnation. After all, once a cultivator forms their nascent soul, they gain the right to fight the heavens. This right is very valuable, but it isn't enough. In order to fight the heavens, one must understand the heavens and the cycle of reincarnation. Only after one understands the law of the heavens can they find the way to defy the heavens. This type of thing is very mysterious. One either understands it or they don't. If one can comprehend the heavens, then no matter how much spiritual energy they absorb, they will always be weak. It's like giving a baby a divine weapon. If they can wield the weapon, it is still useless. If they use it by force, they will be able to harm the enemy, but they themselves will be hurt as well. Comprehending the heavens and obtaining a domain is what allows the baby to wield the weapon. This is the only way to obtain the ability to wield that power. Only after comprehending the heavens can one wield this power as if it were their own. As a result, this stage is called soul formation. Once one obtains the strength to wield this power, they have far surpassed mortals and other cultivators. They are in existence beyond humans because they have a divine soul. However, this soul isn't the normal type of soul in the records. It's a state of mind, a change of heart, a very mysterious realm. This realm is similar to the soul in the records, and that is how the soul formation stage came to be. But just having the power is not enough. Even if a baby has the strength to wield this power, it can wield it for long. This is how the origin soul came to be. Once the baby grows up, it will naturally be able to store more power. This is the origin soul. In order to form an origin soul, one needs a domain and divine sense. Then they fuse together into the nascent soul, and thus a new soul is born. This is the origin soul. As for the power that could be used, that is the power of the heavens. Soul formation cultivators can use the power of the heavens, something that nascent soul cultivators can use. The power of the heavens is the domain. Depending on the domain someone comprehends from the heavens, they will be able to display different powers of the heavens. At this moment, Wang Lin understood everything. He slowly looked at the land before him, and, after a long time, his origin soul slowly sank back down. His origin soul returned to the cave and entered his forehead. It eventually fused back together with his body. At this moment, all of the spiritual energy in Wang Lin's body disappeared and fused with his origin soul. After a long time, Wang Lin slowly opened his eyes. These eyes were like those of a newborn baby with distinct black and white. There was also a hint of an aura. Wang Lin took a deep breath and raised his right hand. He casually grabbed with his hand, and a rift in space appeared. Cold air blew out from the rift that seemed to be able to blow out life. Before, Wang Lin would only be able to open a rift in space this easily inside the land of the ancient god. Otherwise, he would have to use all of the spiritual energy in his body to barely succeed. This cold air was the life-extinguishing wind from the void. Nascent soul cultivators could just barely resist it. But core formation cultivators would have to stay far away from it unless they possessed a treasure that could resist it. Wang Lin was able to resist it before, but he would still feel very uncomfortable. However, if he were to go inside, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. This was also why back then, when the people he fought opened up a rift to run away, he didn't dare to chase after them. This cold air didn't have any effect on Wang Lin anymore. Even if his whole body were to go into the rift, it would no longer harm him at all. He faintly smiled as his right hand slowly entered the rift. When he withdrew his right hand, there were specks of light on it. Looking at these specks of light, Wang Lin crushed them after pondering for a while. He stood up and walked forward as the stones sealing the cave loudly opened. As he walked out of the cave, he saw that all of the members of the Xuandao sect were kneeling on the ground, looking at his direction. Even some of the nearby cultivators not from the Xuandao sect were present. They were kneeling as well. Wang Lin's gaze only took a moment to sweep past everyone. He saw a lot of people that he knew. His gaze suddenly locked onto one of the middle-aged men. The moment Wang Lin saw this person, he let out a faint smile. After he carefully looked at this person more, his smile became wider. Wang Lin mumbled to himself, 40 years to reach the late stage of foundation establishment. Very good. That white-robed middle-aged man stared at Wang Lin, revealing a look of confusion. He felt like he knew this person, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember. Now that he saw this person looking at him, he immediately felt something. It was as if something inside him was awakening. An image flashed across his mind. It seemed like he used to be in the same sect as this person. But he immediately shook his head as this thought was too insane. He took a deep breath and immediately lowered his head. At this moment, an old nascent soul cultivator moved forward. He knelt before Wang Lin and asked, with a trembling voice, "Is Senior from Zhao?" The moment those words came out, all of the cultivators around held their breath. Their eyes were filled with excitement as they stared at Wang Lin. Even the middle-aged man raised his head and looked toward Wang Lin again. Wang Lin's current appearance was not that different from back then, but the aura around him was completely different, so it was no wonder people didn't realize it was him. But even if people did, they wouldn't dare to say it out loud. For a rank cultivation country to become a rank cultivation country, they need a soul formation cultivator that was born in that country. Rank 4 cultivation countries have a technique to verify this. This technique comes from Suzaku. So unless someone's cultivation level is higher than the cultivators of Suzaku, it is very hard to fake. And the most important part is that the soul formation cultivator must live in the country for 100 years before they can report to a rank cultivation country to get their new rank. Obviously, Wang Lin couldn't accept this condition. After hearing the old man's words, Wang Lin pondered for a long time and said, "I am from this country, but I am unable to stay for 100 years. Sorry." The old man's body shivered and he revealed a disappointed look. All of the surrounding cultivators revealed the same expression. When expectations are too high, the amount of disappointment is even higher. Wang Lin let out a sigh. His right hand grabbed in the air, then 10 balls of light appeared. He threw them out, and the 10 balls of light landed on 10 different cultivators. The 10 cultivators' bodies shook and they revealed painful expressions, but this pain didn't last long. After catching their breaths, they revealed joyous expressions. That white-robed middle-aged man was one of them. Wang Lin calmly said, "I can't stay, but I have left behind 10 spirit seeds. Although they won't make your cultivation any easier, once you reach the late stage of nascent soul, I'll naturally know and come to teach you." After he finished speaking, he looked at the white-robed middle-aged man again and let out a faint smile. The spirit seed he gave to the middle-aged man was different from everyone else's. It contained the power to save his life 3 times. These spirit seeds were something a soul formation cultivator formed using the power of the heavens. Their value was unimaginable. As the middle-aged man stared at Wang Lin, the sense of familiarity in his mind became even stronger, but just as he was about to remember, he suddenly felt pain in his head. This pain was much stronger than what he could handle. Just as he felt as if his mind would explode, a gentle power came from the spirit seed, and the pain disappeared. His body trembled and was covered in sweat. A gentle voice in his head said, "Don't think about it anymore. Once you have reached the nascent soul stage, you will remember everything from the past. If you know now, it will only bring you pain." The person's body shook. When he raised his head, he noticed that Wang Lin was faintly smiling at him. Wang Lin took a deep breath and looked at the land before him. Unless special happens, he won't come back to Zhao until someone reaches the late stage of nascent soul. His body slowly rose into the air and gradually disappeared in the sky. On the ground, all of the cultivators raised their heads and revealed determined expressions. This was especially true for the middle-aged man. "I will reach the nascent soul stage. I will." Just at this moment, an object fell from the sky. Everyone looked at it and realized that it was a wood carving. The wood carving fell on top of the mountain and fused with it. Suddenly, the mountain felt like it was filled with spiritual energy. A voice from the distance said, "This object can save Zhao from the invasion of rank cultivation countries 3 times. Be careful." With the tragic ending of the 4-sect alliance in mind, He did one last thing for Zhao. At some point in the few hundred years that followed, this wood carving saved Zhao from an invasion. The invading cultivators had already pushed Zhao to the limit, causing all of the Zhao cultivators to come kneel before the wood carving. The mountain shone before the mockery of all the invading cultivators, causing their attitude to change. When the light disappeared, all of the invading cultivators died. Day in, day out, nearing 3,000 words, reading a lot, but can't force myself to split the story into 2,000 words chapters, because then the flavor's gone. Leo with tears in his eyes, longing for the like button for the video. Chapter 288, The First Sword Sheath. Zhao, outside the Juming Valley. Everything was calm. It was as if the event of someone reaching the soul formation stage had never happened. In a few decades, the Juming Valley will open again for people to search for treasure in the foreign battleground. Wang Lin's figure appeared outside the valley and he looked down at it. He let out a sigh as he waved his right hand and a rift 3 feet long opened before him. If one looked closely, they would notice that this rift was located at the exact spot that Wang Lin self-destructed. After reaching the soul formation stage, Wang Lin's first goal was to reform the bag of holding that disappeared when he died. He didn't care much about most of the items in his old bag of holding, but he had to get that sword sheath back. As of now, he had already found 2 more sword sheaths, and he believed that there was some type of secret within them. His body moved and appeared outside the rift. A powerful wind that could easily distinguish life came out of the rift, but it had no effect on Wang Lin. His right hand reached into the rift and he probed around for the item with his origin soul. Light slowly gathered in his hand and a bag of holding appeared. As Wang Lin spread out his divine sense, his gaze suddenly became serious. The bag was missing a lot of things, including the sword sheath. He pondered a little and guessed that it was because it had been so long that even though he reformed the bag of holding, some of the stuff was lost inside this spatial rift. But he had refined that sword sheath with his cold core, and now that he had reached the soul formation stage, he could faintly sense it. He pondered for a bit before stepping into the spatial rift. After he entered, the rift rapidly closed. It disappeared, and the area outside the Juming Valley was quiet once again. The space within the rift wasn't empty. It was filled with an oppressive atmosphere and cold wind, as well as countless things releasing different colored lights. There were even some pitch-black giant rocks floating around. Just as he entered this area, he felt like this resembled the space in 2CS memory, only there were no stars here. Wang Lin waved his right hand and left a mark here. He quickly moved through this space like a meteor toward where he sensed the sword sheath. As he moved, various gaps in space appeared and tried to suck things in, but this suction force seemed to have no effect on the things inside this space. Gradually, Wang Lin's speed became faster and faster as he flashed through the space. In the distance, there was a sword sheath embedded in a black rock. This sword sheath was the one that belonged to Wang Lin. Around the sword sheath were 4 human-looking shadows. The 4 shadows were sitting around the sword sheath. They were cultivating as slivers of golden energy came out of the sword sheath and were absorbed by the shadows. When Wang Lin saw this from a distance, he suddenly stopped. His eyes were calm as he waved his right hand. Suddenly, the sword sheath shook and the inside of the black rock began to move. However, the 4 shadows suddenly turned to look at Wang Lin with their ghostly eyes. Wang Lin's eyes were calm, and he didn't say a word. Seeing that the sword sheath was rising higher and higher and seemed to even be emitting a sound, mouths opened up on the shadows' faces to suck in more of the golden energy. At the same time, a shadow suddenly stood up. As he stood up, his body instantly grew into a giant black cloud that charged at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he sneered, "A mere ghost magic treasure. You don't know your place." With that, he pointed with his left hand and a beam of spiritual energy shot out from his finger. Although this spiritual energy wasn't powerful, it contained Wang Lin's domain. The feeling of death appeared as the spiritual energy entered the shadow. Under the power of the domain, the shadow's life quickly disappeared. That shadow let out a miserable scream as black gas flooded out of his body. If one looked closely, they would see a mysterious power surrounding the shadow, causing it to shrink. Within a few breaths, it completely disappeared. However, the moment it was about to disappear, Wang Lin shot out another beam of spiritual energy that entered the dissipating shadow, causing it to reform and transform into a statue of a demon. This statue was based on a monster known as Yu from 2CS memory. This was formed through his life and death domain. Right after it appeared, it let out a roar and charged at the 3 remaining shadows. Wang Lin's body still hadn't moved as his origin soul was still emerged inside his life and death domain. He controlled the statue he had created through his domain. This was the first time Wang Lin had used a real soul formation technique that uses the power of the heavens. As for the very powerful techniques, there weren't many universal techniques for soul formation cultivators. All of the techniques are based off one's own domain and are created by themselves. The 3 shadows around the sword sheath let out screeches. One of them jumped into the sword sheath and flew away with it. As for the other 2, they turned with their ghostly gazes and jumped at the statue. One of the shadows exploded into countless black slivers and entered the statue from all directions. The other shadow used this chance to get past the statue and jumped at Wang Lin. At this moment, its eyes gave off a demonic aura. Wang Lin's gaze was calm as he gently pointed at his brow. His origin soul came out as he coldly looked at the shadow and reached out with his right hand. When the shadow saw the origin soul, it let out a scream and turned around to escape without any hesitation. However, it was far too slow, so it was caught by Wang Lin. It struggled and screamed as it was swallowed by Wang Lin's origin soul. As for the escaping sword sheath, it was not moving in a straight line but zigzagging. It was clearly trying to avoid Wang Lin's teleportation. Wang Lin let out a sneer. His origin soul disappeared and became part of this space. It was as if he could clearly see where the sword sheath was going. The origin soul silently appeared next to the sword sheath and grabbed it, then returned to Wang Lin's body. This was the instant movement ability soul formation cultivators could use by fusing with the heavens. Not every soul formation cultivator could use this, but it was far more powerful than the teleportation nascent soul cultivators could use. When Wang Lin devoured the shadow, he absorbed its memories as well. This shadow was created by a powerful cultivator by splitting off parts of his obsessions. Then he placed them here to be refined by the cold wind so they could become souls for magic treasures. These obsessions didn't have much intelligence. They found the sword sheath by chance as they wandered around. They felt some strange fluctuations from the sword sheath and began cultivating around it. Holding the sword sheath, Wang Lin's right hand pointed at the statue. Suddenly, the shadow that entered the statue collapsed and turned into spiritual energy as it dissipated. As for the shadow hiding inside the sword sheath, it was forced out by Wang Lin. He grabbed the shadow, sent some spiritual energy into his hand, and the shadow collapsed. He killed the 4 shadows so that none of them could return to their owner to tell him what happened. Wang Lin's body moved and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was where he left the mark. He opened up another rift and entered it. He appeared outside the Jiu Ming Valley. He didn't pause for a moment and quickly flew away. 1 month later, Wang Lin walked out of a transfer array far away from Zhao. He muttered, "With the appearance of the rain cauldron, the opening of the heaven's gate shouldn't be far away." Although I have just reached the soul formation stage and am still far from the soul transformation stage, there is still a chance. Once I reach the soul transformation stage, Sichunan will be able to wake up. He once said that he was the #1 cultivator in Suzaku, so he must know about the cultivation planet crystal. He should be able to help me obtain this treasure. It says just that I don't know if I can also revive Mom and Dad once I reach the soul transformation stage, but my domain is the life and death domain. The more I understand the reincarnation cycle, the more I understand how difficult it is to go against it. This goal of reviving my parents will be very difficult to achieve. Wang Lin let out a sigh. Forget it. Let's us worry about this later. If there really is no way to revive them, then I'll find them a place to re-enter the reincarnation cycle. This affection is still not repaid. At this moment, Wang Lin still needed to refine another restriction flag. There was only 1 inkstone left, so he had to use it carefully and could not let it be damaged. Wang Lin had tried to repair the damaged restriction flag, but wasn't able to. It could now only be used to summon the divine retribution. In addition to all of this, although I have already reached the soul formation stage, I have far too few magic treasures. The celestial realm could open up any time now, so I must be prepared. I must obtain this celestial spiritual energy. International Children's Day brings tears and wishing for the like button for the video. Chapter 28 Chores. Among purple, black, white, and red, Black represented a really high cultivation. Wang Lin couldn't see through his cultivation, so he respectfully said, Wang Lin greets Brother Zhang. Congratulations to Senior on reaching black clothes. The black-clad youth looked at Wang Lin and slowly said, me successfully breaking into the 5th layer of QI condensation does relate a bit to you. If I hadn't found that cave while looking for you, I wouldn't have broken through so quickly. Wang Lin was stunned and asked, Brother Zhang, that hole with the suction force in the cave could help cultivation. The black-clad youth nodded and said, when you reach the peak of the 4th layer and need to use the chant to enter the 5th layer, go there yourself and you will see the effect. He glanced at Wang Lin and said, Brother Wang, it can be helped since your talent is mediocre, but since you are a disciple now, you must cultivate diligently. I see that you have no spiritual energy in you at all. You haven't even reached the 1st layer of QI condensation. I am afraid that out of all the inner disciples, you are the only one. Wang Lin was stunned but wryly smiled. I'll take apprentice Brother S' advice to heart. I will double my effort in cultivation. He suddenly changed the subject and asked, Brother Zhang, what is the reason you here today? The black-clad youth chuckled and said, it's nothing serious. The honorary disciple in charge of the chore house disappeared. Someone saw you go there that day, so I came here to ask you about it. Wang Lin's expression remained normal and laughed. I have an inkling of what happened. Normally, I don't go near the chore house, but half a month ago I passed by it, and an honorary disciple was talking behind my back, so I taught him a lesson. Maybe he got scared of me and left the sect. Brother Zhang nodded his head, half laughing. He looked at Wang Lin and said, a disgusting honorary disciple is not important. Today I came to you because the elders have decided that an honorary disciple shouldn't be in charge of the chore house, so they wanted an inner disciple to take over. But no inner disciple wants to go, they are all busy cultivating. Wang Lin wryly smiled, I understand. It seems the task has been assigned to me. Brother Zhang smiled slightly and said, pack your things and head there today. Right now, the chore house is really messy. You have to get it back in order. He cusped his hands at Wang Lin, took a step, and a sword appeared under his feet. The sword emitted rainbow colors as he rode it away. Wang Lin revealed a frustrated expression. He didn't want to go to the chore house. The people there were too nosy. It would be too easy for his secret to be exposed. Also, there would be a lot of work that would disrupt his cultivation. But now, he couldn't not go. With a belly filled with anger, he packed his things and arrived at the chore house. After arriving there, he reached a decision in his heart. He couldn't stay in the chore house for too long. He had to mess up everything in the chore house so that every honorary disciple would go to the elders to ask for a replacement. With this idea in mind, Wang Lin cleaned up disciple U's room. Besides the bed and the table, everything that was useless was thrown outside. While he was doing this, a few disciples arrived at the chore house. They had learned that Wang Lin was now in charge of assigning chores, so many of them were nervous. The faces of the few that ridiculed Wang Lin the most were pale, and their hearts pounded. Some had intentions of helping Wang Lin clean up, but after being glared at, they all obediently stood in the yard. After he finished cleaning, Wang Lin casually sat down on a chair. He coldly looked at the 100+ honorary disciples before him. He knew that the Heng Yue sect had a lot of honorary disciples. This was only a fraction of them. In the next few days, there would be more honorary disciples coming back to report on their work. You will now chop 500 pounds of firewood. Wang Lin casually pointed at a person. He remembered that that person had secretly ridiculed him. That person was stunned. He immediately cried, Brother Wang, I used to work in the kitchen. I don't know how to chop wood. Wang Lin rolled his eyes. He snorted. Now it's 1,000 pounds a day. The boy suddenly kneeled to the ground and started crying. Brother Wang, you are a good person. I shouldn't have ridiculed you back then. But please, don't be so vindictive. I can't possibly do 1,000 pounds. How about 500 pounds? The surrounding people all looked at each other. They all knew Wang Lin would make things difficult, but this was clearly revenge. There were a few honorary disciples in the crowd that shouted in discontent. Everyone don't listen to him. Let's go find an elder and have them carry out justice. Wang Lin is too overbearing. Correct. Let us go find the elders to get another inner disciple to be in charge of this place. If they don't listen to us, we will kneel and never get up. True. Let's go, everyone. Don't stay here. This Wang Lin has a villainous look. He doesn't even remember that he entered the sect by trying to commit suicide. Such a disgrace. The sound the dissatisfied voices grew louder and louder. Soon, everyone left the yard while shouting insults. They all had looks of grievance as they went toward the courtyard, all shouting things like, "Wang Lin doesn't want us to live anymore." Wang Lin was relaxed in his heart. He didn't stop them and hoped that they would succeed. This way, the elders would get mad and make someone else take over so he can concentrate on cultivation. The remaining 10 or so people were hesitating. They wanted to leave, but if this thing failed, wouldn't it mean that they had completely disrespected Wang Lin? Wang Lin wasn't in a rush. He waited for the result from the main courtyard. A moment later, all the honorary disciples gloomily came back, one by one. This time, they were no longer shouting, but had eyes filled with despair and silence. Wang Lin saw their expressions and knew that they had failed. He was very disappointed in his heart. It seemed he had to make an even bigger commotion. Thinking about it, he scanned the people here and said, "All of you who secretly mock me, listen to me. I am here today to get revenge. If you're dissatisfied, go to the elders. If you can get me removed from this position, I will have to thank you." One of the disciples begged, "Brother Wang, you are a great person. Please forgive us." "Yes, Brother Wang, we were blind back then. Please give us a break. I'll kowtow to you." "Brother Wang, they all mocked you back then, but I never did. I even defended you." Quickly approaching 3,900 words, Leo fierce as a tiger. Wishing for sharing, for likes on the video, for channel followers. Chapter Ancient God S Tactic Treasure. Wang Lin made a decision and removed the thought of returning to Chu for now. He immediately stopped and thought for a while, then clenched his teeth and slapped his bag of holding. The mosquito beast immediately came out and circled him a few times. Wang Lin jumped onto the back of the beast and sent out a message to the mosquito. The mosquito let out a sound as it waved its proboscis, but it didn't move forward. Instead, it looked as if it were trying to please Wang Lin. This expression looked very strange on this beast. If anyone else were to see this, they would be terrified. After all, this beast just looked too scary. Wang Lin faintly smiled. He took out a few pills and threw them forward. The mosquito beast immediately revealed a smile and flew forward and devoured the pills. Just like this, Wang Lin continued to throw out pills, and the mosquito beast kept flying forward. Soon that bottle of pills was empty. Wang Lin rubbed the beast's head and said, "Okay, you little brat. No more pills for you today. If you fly faster today, I'll give you more tomorrow." The mosquito beast let out a roar as it moved like lightning across the sky. Along the way, Wang Lin felt rather pleased. His revenge was complete, and his cultivation level had reached a new height. This made him feel very happy. Wang Lin let out a laugh that filled the heavens. The mosquito beast below him seemed to notice this, and roared with him. As the two voices became louder and louder, they caused the cultivation country below them to become very alert. Several divine senses came to check, but the moment they noticed Wang Lin's cultivation level and the beast below him, they immediately withdrew and didn't dare to disturb them. At this moment, in a human city in the cultivation country below Wang Lin, a messy-looking old man with a smile his face said to a little foundation establishment cultivator, "Little brother, I see that you are very talented and filled with energy. You are by no means a normal person. However, without guidance, I'm afraid you have no hope in reaching the core formation stage." The little cultivator stared at the old man and shouted, "Scram! If you keep blocking my path, don't blame me for being merciless." The messy old man said, "Tskask," and pointed at the sky toward Wang Lin. "You see him? That little kid was only at nascent soul cultivator when I met him, but now he has reached the soul formation stage. How about it? Do you want me to call him down to prove it to you?" The little cultivator let out a cold snort and looked at the black dot that had already flown into the distance and said, "Scram!" With that, he pushed the old man aside and walked away. The old man let out a sigh and revealed a look of regret before immediately running to the cultivator with a bunch of tokens in hand and said, "Little brother, I have tokens for the 8 great sects of Sang Mi, even sect head tokens. These are powerful items to protect yourself. If anyone dares to mess with you, just throw one out and tell them to scram." Wang Lin did not see this, but as he finished laughing, he took out a wood carving from his bag of holding. This wood carving was of the old man with the passing of time domain. He moved his left hand, and a ball of golden light appeared. Then he bit the tip of his finger to draw a drop of blood, before fusing it with the golden light, and pushed it into the wood carving. Suddenly, the wood carving shook. Now there was an extra blood vein moving within the carving. If one looked closely, there wasn't just one, but more than 30 of these blood veins inside the carving. These blood veins were all moving and often flashed past each other without coming into contact. This was the result of Wang Lin's practice in the past several days. Time quickly passed, and in the blink of an eye, 1 month had gone by. Wang Lin sat on the back of the mosquito beast as they passed through one transfer array after another before finally reaching the Sea of Devils. In the past few decades, there had been constant war inside the Sea of Devils. With the attacks of several cultivation countries and the retaliation of the demonic cultivators, the war had reached a stalemate. Wang Lin's goal was the land of the ancient god. After obtaining the inheritance of memory, he had a technique that would allow him to enter and leave the place at will. Wang Lin thought for a long time. Only there would he be able to complete the restriction flag without triggering divine retribution that would destroy the flag. Aside from that, there were a lot of spirit beasts and even desolate beasts there. Wang Lin wanted to catch one. He wanted to do everything to prepare himself for when the gate opens to the Rain's celestial realm. He even had plans to visit the foreign battleground to gather enough wandering souls. Wang Lin predicted that as long as he doesn't enter the first trial, Ta Sen won't be able to detect him. Even if Ta Sen could, with Wang Lin's cultivation level, he would still be able to leave before getting caught. Now that he had this idea, he put on the straw hat he got from the messy old man and charged directly toward the land of the ancient god. Under the effect of the straw hat, some of the weaker cultivators didn't even dare to obstruct him and let him pass through. The war in the Sea of Devils never stopped. Although there weren't any large-scale battles like many years ago, there were still small fights occurring everywhere. However, all of these fights were controlled, so only core formation cultivators and below participated. Nascent soul cultivators rarely entered these fights. It seemed that both sides were storing their power for the next big fight. Thus, no one bothered to stop Wang Lin at all. Although some soul formation cultivators spread out their divine senses, once they noticed Wang Lin, they let him pass. Wang Lin's speed was very fast. If there were any beasts that dared to block his path, the mosquito beast would rush up and devour their core. After several days of passing through transfer arrays, he arrived at the inner part of the Sea of Devils. Just as he walked out of the transfer array, he noticed a battle nearby. After checking it with his divine sense, he no longer cared about it and took out his map jade. He checked his current location before moving again. The chaotic broken stars were 100,000 miles to the east. As he flew, he suddenly frowned as he noticed a red cloud charging towards him. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He knew that in the Sea of Devils, strength was everything. If he showed weakness, people would eat him alive. As he thought of this, a cold aura began to emit from his body. In the blink of an eye, the red cloud got closer. Inside the red cloud was a mysterious beast. The beast looked like a dragon turtle, but there was no spike on its back. Instead, there was a half-moon horn that released a ghostly light. This beast's body was very big. On its back was an old man wearing a gray robe with a large red gourd on his side. After seeing the beast and old man, he immediately remembered who this was. This was the person who had left a restriction on him back then and told him to go to the treasure refining pavilion. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, but he immediately calmed down as he looked at the old man with a cold gaze. The old man quickly arrived before Wang Lin and looked at him before revealing a surprised expression. Wang Lin could feel that the old man's divine sense was driven back by the golden light from the straw hat. The old man stared at Wang Lin. He was shocked. After looking at the straw hat for a bit, the old man slapped the dragon turtle below him. The dragon turtle quickly moved past Wang Lin and headed east. At this moment, even the old man became cautious, as this mysterious person was covered in a golden light that caused even his divine to back away in pain, so he didn't want to offend Wang Lin. And in his view, for someone to have this kind of treasure, they must at least be at the soul formation stage. He didn't want to start a fight with a soul formation cultivator for no reason. Wang Lin frowned as he saw that the old man was headed east. He pondered for a bit before moving east as well. For soul formation cultivators who had mastered shift movement, which was much more powerful than nascent soul cultivator's teleportation, by becoming one with the earth, 100%. 0,000 miles wasn't too much. Soon, Wang Lin saw the unique rings of the chaotic broken stars. The ring continued to move in a mysterious way according to some ancient formation that was set here long ago. However, Wang Lin felt that the rings were different from before. There was a mysterious power from the heavens that didn't belong in this world that allowed the rings to produce avatars far more powerful than the ones before. The old man was no longer on top of the dragon turtle. He was looking at the chaotic broken stars. He seemed to notice Wang Lin's arrival but only took one look at him before withdrawing his gaze. According to Wang Lin's speed, the old man was sure that Wang Lin was a soul formation cultivator. Wang Lin's gaze was calm. After pondering for a while, he found a place to sit down. Although he closed his eyes and appeared to be cultivating, his divine sense was still on guard. He wanted to see what the old man's real goal was. If the old man was going into the land of the ancient god too, he wouldn't go in first but wait until after the old man had entered. The old man looked at Wang Lin again and suddenly said, "Since fellow cultivator is here too, then I believe you are here to collect some aurora fire. How about the two of us enter together?" Wang Lin's expression remained the same, but his heart shook as he wondered what this aurora fire was. There was nothing about it in the memories from 2C, and Wang Lin's own cultivation path hadn't been short either, but he had never heard of this aurora fire. He made his voice sound more husky and laughed. "I'm not interested in teaming up." The old man let out a snort and carefully looked at Wang Lin before turning back toward the ring of the chaotic broken stars. Tears streaming long, wishing for the like button for the video. Chapter No Name 1. The old man slapped the dragon turtle, and it let out a roar at the chaotic broken stars that shattered the debris. Although it was silent, the ring was pushed in, and the debris was moved out of the way. The old man jumped onto the hand of the turtle dragon. The turtle dragon took a deep breath, and all of the surrounding spiritual energy was sucked into its mouth. Then the beast let out another roar. This time, a visible sound wave was seen right before it smashed through the ring. A 100-meter wide tunnel appeared inside the ring, and all of the debris was turned to dust. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He was surprised at the power of this beast, but he wasn't afraid of it if it were ever to come to a real fight. After all, from what he had seen, the attack was linear, and with how nimble Wang Lin was in a fight, how could he let the beast hit him with that kind of attack? The old man charged out and followed closely behind the roar like an arrow. In the blink of an eye, he was almost within 100 meters of the ring. Shortly after, the debris in the ring formed clones of the old man. The old man didn't panic. He slapped his bag of holding, and more than 10 pieces of jade flew out. The jades circled the old man and flew out at the clones just as they charged at him. Every single jade quickly flew at each of the clones. Then the jades exploded into clouds of silver dust that mysteriously turned into clones of the old man as well. As a result, the scene in the ring of the chaotic broken stars became very crazy. The old man used the clones formed by the jades to block the clones formed by the debris. Then he used this moment to charge through the chaotic broken stars. The moment he went through, all of those clones formed by the jades silently disappeared. All of the clones formed by the debris let out angry roars as they disappeared as well. The old man turned around and looked at Wang Lin outside the ring. He let out a snort and waved his hand. The turtle dragon shrunk until it was a black light that flew towards him. However, the chaotic broken stars had no reaction to the black light at all. It allowed it to fly to the old man before turning back into a turtle dragon. The old man jumped onto the back of the beast and went deeper. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He didn't immediately get up, but silently waited. This wait lasted for 7 days. As for the mosquito beast, Wang Lin didn't put it back into his bag. Instead, he let it roam around. The beast originally came from the Sea of Devils. Now that it was back at its home, it was very relaxed. After 7 days, the figure of the turtle dragon appeared again with the old man sitting on top. Beside the old man were 7 thin golden lights that were rapidly moving. But every time they tried to escape, there would be a light screen that blocked their path. The old man looking at Wang Lin with a surprised expression, but he didn't say anything and left the chaotic broken stars the same way he came in. After he came out, he let out a smile and raised his hand. He grabbed one of the golden lines and threw it at Wang Lin as he said, "Fellow cultivator, I'll give you this strand of aurora fire." That golden line moved like lightning toward Wang Lin. One moment it was far away from Wang Lin, but it was already in front of him the next. Wang Lin's expression remained the same as his right hand pointed in the air. His life and death domain immediately activated in his soul. The life and death domain focused on change. After all, life and death constantly change between one and the other. The golden line immediately slowed down and became very obedient as it curled around Wang Lin's finger. Wang Lin said, in a husky voice, "To refuse would be disrespectful." The old man's eyes lit up. He was sure now that Wang Lin was a soul formation cultivator. After all, this aurora fire would devour a nascent soul, so only after forming their origin soul could one safely handle it. The old man let out a mischievous smile and said, "Since you don't want to team up, I'll take my leave." He slapped the beast below him, and red clouds gathered again as he left. Wang Lin pondered a little, stood up, and looked at the golden line. But just at this moment, the mosquito beast appeared before him and started staring at the golden line. The mosquito beast's eyes revealed fear, but also greed. It was as if it wanted to eat it, but didn't dare to. Wang Lin was surprised as he looked at the obedient golden line around his finger. Then he asked the mosquito beast, "This thing is useful to you?" The mosquito struggled before finally gently nodding with its big head, but then he revealed a trace of fear. Wang Lin activated the death part of his domain and surrounded the golden line. A light appeared around the golden line. Then it shivered and dimmed down, as it had become unstable. The mosquito beast revealed a joyous expression as Wang Lin threw the golden line at him, and the two collided. Suddenly, the golden line shivered and entered the mosquito beast's head. The mosquito beast let out a few miserable groans as it fell to the ground and began to struggle, but its eyes revealed joy. Wang Lin was very surprised as he stared at the mosquito beast. After 3 hours, the mosquito beast stopped struggling. Popping sounds came from its body, and it grew larger. The mosquito beast was now 30 meters large and could be considered a small hill. Its proboscis became even longer, making it look even more frightening. In reality, this aurora fire was a material for refining treasures that only soul formation cultivators could handle, as it would devour nascent souls to grow. Beasts normally stay far away from aurora fire. But this mosquito beast had followed Wang Lin for a while now, and after devouring so many pills, it had gone from a low-quality spirit beast to a mid-quality spirit beast, which was the same as a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. Originally, the mosquito beast couldn't fuse with the golden line, but after it was weakened by Wang Lin's death domain, it was able to be absorbed by the beast and strengthened it. Wang Lin stood up and slapped the mosquito beast. The beast immediately got the hint and returned to Wang Lin's bag. After a short period of time, Wang Lin passed through the ring of the chaotic broken stars. He could easily pass through when he was at the core formation stage. Thanks to his life and death domain, he was able to make his cultivation level look much weaker than it really was, so the clones created were very weak as well. After walking through the ring, he didn't stop and quickly went toward the entrance of the land of the ancient god. It didn't take long before he arrived at the entrance. Just before he stepped in, the mosquito beast flew out. It circled Wang Lin a few times before roaring at the entrance and looking at Wang Lin with a begging expression. Wang Lin's divine sense spread out and found a small rift in the distance. A golden line came out of the rift, releasing a bright light. Seeing this, Wang Lin understood and laughed. What? Was one not enough? The mosquito quickly nodded and immediately tried to please Wang Lin by rubbing its proboscis over him. If anyone else saw this, they would be terrified, as not many would allow a proboscis like that to touch them at will. Wang Lin let out a smile as he looked at the golden line in the distance and said, "No rush. Let me seal the surroundings with restrictions so no one else can bother us. Then I'll gather them for you for later." As he spoke, his hand constantly moved, causing numerous restrictions to appear. These restrictions were very different from when he was at the nascent soul stage. Before, these were only powerful restrictions, but now that they contained his domain, their power was several times stronger. These restrictions quickly spread out, and soon, a large restriction formation that covered hundreds of meters took form. After he finished all of this, he arrived next to where the golden lines were. At this moment, the golden line seemed to notice and quickly backed away. In the blink of an eye, most of it had gone back inside. The mosquito beast panicked and started to roar, but didn't dare to move up. He only looked at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, Then he reached out with his hand. He got a hold of the golden line and pulled it back hard. The golden line was pulled out by Wang Lin and furiously tried to escape. The death domain quickly activated and the golden line dimmed. He threw it into the air and the mosquito beast fused with it. At this moment, the rift that the golden line came from began to shrink. Seeing that it was about to disappear, Wang Lin sat down. His origin soul came out and quickly entered the rift. The moment his origin entered the rift, his eyes were blinded by a golden light. He saw a giant body that emitted a blinding golden light and countless golden lines moved around within this space. Without a word, Wang Lin grabbed a handful of golden lines and stored them in his origin soul before quickly leaving through the rift. The moment his origin soul came out of the rift closed. The 10 or so golden lines in his hand dimmed under the power of his death domain. Then he threw them at the mosquito beast. The mosquito beast revealed an excited look, but there were too many golden lines for it to devour at once. Wang Lin kept a bit of his death domain on the golden lines so they would remain in that state and said, "You can slowly eat them here. I am going to make a trip into the land of the ancient god." With that, his body disappeared. When he reappeared, he was at the entrance to the land of the ancient god. After taking a deep breath, his eyes lit up, he clenched his teeth, and finally said a few words in the ancient god's tongue while forming seals with his hand. Suddenly, his body became blurred, and then disappeared. Wang Lin appeared on top of a spinning stone pillar in the endless dark tunnel of the first trial. After coming back here, Wang Lin felt melancholy, but he was in a rush. He immediately sat down and sent out several restrictions before finally taking out the ink stone. He took a deep breath and then placed one attack restriction after another on the ink stone at a very quick pace. As time passed, more and more restrictions were placed on the ink stone. After he finished the initial steps, he took out a soul flag. After fusing the two together, he continued refining. Time slowly passed. Wang Lin didn't take his time. He refined as quickly as he could. One by one, restrictions landed on the flag, and after an unknown amount of time had passed, there were finally 999 restrictions on it. Only one more left for it to reach its first stage of completion. At this moment, Wang Lin began to hesitate. If his guess was wrong and the divine retribution lightning strikes, it would be very difficult to protect this flag. Once it was damaged, unless he could get more ink stones, he would have to get the one he had left with Li Muwan. If he stopped now, although the restriction flag would be weak, it wouldn't break. If he uses it carefully, then it could barely work. After pondering a little, his eyes lit up. If this restriction flag doesn't reach the first completion stage, then it would be too weak to be of any use in the Rain Celestial realm. He clenched his teeth as his right hand formed the last restriction and placed it on the restriction flag. Suddenly, the flag shook as slivers of black gas came out of it, followed by a primitive aura. Wang Lin scanned it with his divine sense and was shocked. He knew that a pure attack restriction flag was going to be powerful, but after a quick check, he found out that it was more than 10 times stronger than it was before it was complete. As a result, this restriction flag was a threat to even soul formation cultivators. All of the restrictions had fused into one, and he could sacrifice 9 restrictions to use the restriction flag's spirit ability. This ability could restrain all of the spiritual energy in the heavens, and even the spiritual energy within cultivators, creating an area without any spiritual energy. As a result, unless the cultivator had celestial spiritual energy, anyone in its range would lose their ability to control spiritual energy for a short period of time. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he clenched the restriction flag. His confidence in this trip to the celestial realm greatly increased. As for the divine retribution lightning, it never came. Wang Lin was very excited as he knew he had won the gamble. The body of the ancient god was its own realm, so the divine retribution couldn't feel the existence of the restriction flag. He took a deep breath and continued to place restrictions on it. However, he wasn't able to reach the second completion stage as there weren't that many pure attack restrictions. This was the one key limiting factor of single attribute restriction flags. The like button for the VIDEO is in danger. Urgently wishing for the like button for the VIDEO's aid. You are listening to a completely free audiobook on the Leo Audio YouTube channel. If you enjoy the story, please like the video to motivate the channel. Support Leo with a cup of coffee through the description link or on the screen. If you want to hear any other stories, just comment and let Leo know. Thank you very much for watching the video. Chapter 2, No Name. After placing 18 more sets of different restrictions onto the flag, Wang Lin let out a sigh. He had already done his best. If he wished to continue, then he would have to study more restrictions. This was the only way to increase the amount of pure attack restrictions. Wang Lin had already made up his mind to learn more restrictions in the future. Just at its first completion, the flag was already this powerful, so he was very hopeful to see what it will be like once it reaches its second completion. At that stage, it would probably be able to shock soul transformation cultivators. As Wang Lin thought about this, he became excited. He put away the complete flag and took out the damaged one. After looking at it, he gave up on placing the last restriction on it. The main use for this flag will be to summon the divine retribution lightning. After completing the restriction flag, Wang Lin jumped up and flew toward the darkness of the tunnel. Wang Lin was very familiar with this area. After all, back then he had to slowly advance through this dangerous area. Even though he was doing it again, he became careless and descended with caution. He picked this place to get a spirit beast, because although there weren't many here, all of them were far more powerful than the ones in the Sea of Devils. There were even some desolate beasts here. Of course, even Wang Lin wasn't willing to mess with those. He was after high-quality spirit beasts that were about the same as a soul formation cultivator. The reason he was picking a beast here was because he had a treasure called the Beast Trap. This trap would allow him to control any beast at the cost of a lot of spiritual energy. Wang Lin got the trap when he first arrived in the land of the ancient god from those ancient cultivators in exchange for helping them. In the years after, he had found some low-quality spirit beasts to test it on, which was why he was here now. It could be said that Wang Lin had prepared all he could in order to obtain celestial spiritual energy from the celestial realm. Once he catches a high-quality spirit beast, something on the same level as soul formation cultivator, it will help him out a lot. However, during this period of time, he will have to inject spiritual energy into the treasure to prevent the beast from breaking free. He had his divine sense spread out the entire time as he sank down, but he found no spirit beasts at all. This confused him greatly as he remembered that when he was this far in last time, he had already seen several spirit beasts. He pondered for a bit before continuing to sink down. He soon arrived at where that 10,000-meter dragon fell last time. Standing there, Wang Lin began to hesitate. If he were to continue to sink, then he might run into desolate beasts. But he didn't meet a single spirit beast on the entire way down. It seemed this trip was a waste. After pondering a bit more, he formed a seal to leave the land of the ancient god. After all, it was simply too dangerous to go farther. Wang Lin didn't want to risk too much just for a spirit beast. However, just as he formed the seal, two eyes like big pearls appeared in the darkness below him. Then a red dragon suddenly charged out. Wang Lin was able to immediately notice that this dragon was the same one from last time. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly stopped and noticed that there was a green toad in front of the dragon. This toad was about 10 meters tall, and as it kicked off with its back foot, it suddenly moved forward with the dragon chasing behind it. Without a word, Wang Lin sank down in the rock. His divine sense spread out to check out what was going on. He'd already finished the seal and only needed to activate it to leave. Now that he was in no rush to leave, he was interested in what was happening. He saw the red dragon open its mouth and coil up its body. When it uncoiled, it shot forward. It whipped its body to wrap around the toad. The toad suddenly paused as the dragon attempted to warp around it. Suddenly, there was a bright flash from the toad that lit up the whole area. After the light dimmed, there was a ball of lightning around the toad. The red dragon let out a roar and quickly dodged. It seemed to be very afraid of that lightning. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He was shocked. Although the toadess lightning didn't look all that special. It gave Wang Lin the same feeling he got when he encountered the divine retribution lightning for the first time. This toad might be a desolate beast as well if it's able to fight with the red dragon. But he immediately rejected that idea as he saw the toad go down and land on a rock nearby with despair in its eyes. From the looks of it, it didn't seem like it was a desolate beast. After all, a battle between two desolate beasts wouldn't be decided in one attack. Wang Lin suddenly felt very excited. He wasn't willing to mess with a desolate beast, but if this toad was a high-quality spirit beast, then it would fit his needs. At this point, the red dragon let out a roar. Suddenly, 10 balls of blood appeared around it. Inside the balls of blood were souls of spirit beasts. The balls of blood rushed toward the toad. The despair in the Toad's eyes deepened as Wang Lin clenched his teeth and jumped out. The moment he appeared, the red dragon charged toward Wang Lin with a mocking expression. 3 of the balls of blood went toward Wang Lin. After seeing the spirit beast souls inside the balls, Wang Lin finally understood why he hadn't spotted any beast this entire time. This dragon must have gone crazy, killed all the spirit beasts here, and refined their souls into these balls of blood. Wang Lin's expression remained the same in the face of the ball of blood as he waved his hand. There was a sudden flash of light and a bronze circle appeared. This bronze circle was the size of a bracelet. If one looked at it closely, they would see the faces of hundreds of beasts that looked alive. The moment this bronze circle appeared, all of the beast souls became scared and avoided the circle. It quickly arrived above the toad, became large, and was about to descend. Wang Lin shouted, "If you don't want to die, don't struggle." He then didn't even look at the bronze circle as his body disappeared within this tunnel. All of this happened very quickly. The dragon would have never thought that Wang Lin would have the ability to leave this place at any time. After realizing that Wang Lin's presence was gone, the dragon let out a roar and a ring of blood expanded. Everything that was touched by this ring was turned to dust. The toad was going to dodge the bronze circle, but after hearing Wang Lin's words, its eyes lit up. Instead of dodging, it jumped into the bronze circle and let it lock around its neck. Just as the red ring got near, the toad disappeared. The dragon's angry roar echoed throughout the tunnel. Wang Lin appeared at the entrance. Just as he appeared, his face immediately turned pale, and he quickly took out several bottles of pills before sitting down to cultivate. Beside him sat a large green toad. The toad looked curiously at its surroundings. Around its neck was a bronze collar. The mosquito beast noticed Wang Lin's presence and immediately came over. However, it also noticed the toad and growled at it. That toad rolled its eyes and flicked its tongue out. The tongue flew out like lightning toward the mosquito, who dodged it and immediately lunged at the toad with its sharp proboscis. The toad revealed a look of disdain before its belly suddenly swelled up, and a ball of lightning shot out at the mosquito. The mosquito let out a roar as it opened its mouth, spat out 10 golden lines that formed a net, and trapped the ball of lightning. Just at this moment, Wang Lin opened his eyes, frowned, and shouted, "Enough!" The toad lazily took in a breath of air and swallowed the lightning again. The mosquito beast viciously stared at the toad but didn't dare to move closer. There was, after all, an entire grade of difference between the mosquito and the toad. Wang Lin's face was slightly pale. When the trap got around the toad's neck, a ton of spiritual energy was sucked out of him. This almost turned him to a mummy before successfully controlling the toad. The moment he got control of the toad, he suddenly felt something in his mind. This was information about the beast he had trapped. This toad was a thunder toad, and it was a high-quality thunder spirit beast. According to Wang Lin's knowledge, this treasure would take spiritual energy from him to maintain control of the beast at set periods of time. These intervals were set, so after leaving behind a command for the 2 beasts to be quiet, he sat down and began cultivating again. 6 days later, the beast trap started absorbing more spiritual energy, but since Wang Lin was prepared this time, he wasn't afraid. After it stopped absorbing, he swallowed spirit pills to recover his spiritual energy. He then stood up and waved his hand. Suddenly, the beast trap shrank. The toad let out an unwilling roar as it shrank with it, before returning to Wang Lin's hand. All of the beast faces were now gone from the bracelet. They were replaced with the face of a toad. After confirming the time intervals in which the beast trap would suck spiritual energy from him, Wang Lin got up and prepared to leave the chaotic broken stars. However, the mosquito let out anxious roars and attracted Wang Lin's attention. He quickly flew to where the golden lines were coming from and stopped. For some reason, a fist-sized rift had appeared again. Wang Lin took a look, then his origin soul left his body and entered the rift. In an instant, he grabbed dozens of golden lines, but just as he was about to leave, something hundreds of times thicker than the golden lines extended from the sun-like object. The moment this thick line appeared, the golden sun shrank a size. Everywhere the thick line went, the other golden lines avoided it. It charged directly at Wang Lin, and before it even got close, Wang Lin felt a destructive force coming his way. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he took a look at this object. He didn't attack, but quickly withdrew his origin soul back to his body and escaped into the distance. The mosquito seemed to notice something as it stared at the golden lines in Wang Lin's hand and followed behind. Wang Lin only backed off a short distance before he heard a thunderous roar and countless swirls appeared next to the fist-sized rift. The swirls spread until they made the rift larger, then the large golden line charged at Wang Lin. Wang Lin didn't turn his head as he quickly escaped. The chaotic broken stars wasn't that big, so he soon went past the restrictions he had set. He grabbed the mosquito beast, put it away, and charged into the ring of the chaotic broken stars. The moment he entered the ring, the very large golden line smashed into the restrictions Wang Lin had set up. However, Wang Lin's restrictions were instantly destroyed and weren't able to delay the golden line at all. Wang Lin saw this with his divine sense. This caused him to frown as he flew out from the chaotic broken stars ring. The golden line seemed to dread the chaotic broken stars ring. It was as if there was a power preventing it from going further. It coiled up like a snake and pointed at Wang Lin. Wang Lin stood outside the chaotic broken star S ring and looked at the golden line before leaving. He knew that those 2 trips into the rift were too much. They clearly caused something like the ruler of the golden lines to appear to stop him. This was probably the reason why the old man with the turtle dragon had only taken 7 and left. After surrounding the golden lines with his death domain, he took out the mosquito beast and gave them to it. The mosquito beast devoured them one by one. This beast had been very well fed these past few days as these golden lines were very nutritious. Thanks to these golden lines, the day where it becomes a high-quality spirit beast wasn't too far. After leaving the chaotic broken stars, he pondered a bit and then slapped his bag of holding to take out a small cauldron. This cauldron was the thing needed to go to the rain celestial realm, the rain cauldron. This cauldron wasn't very big. It could be held in one hand. It also looked very ordinary with no marks on it. But if one looked with their divine sense, they would notice a sliver of aura that was far more powerful than spiritual energy. This aura was clearly several times more pure than spiritual energy. Wang Lin knew that this was celestial spiritual energy. However, this aura was simply too weak to be used for cultivation. It could only be used as a key to open the celestial gate. After he obtained this rain cauldron, Wang Lin had studied it many times. He looked at it for a while before putting it away. According to what normally happens once the rain cauldrons appear, that means that the celestial gates are about to open. Many years had already passed since they appeared, so the day should arrive soon. Unfortunately, that messy old man didn't give him an exact time, or else it wouldn't be this complicated. Wang Lin let out a sigh and took out a piece of jade from his bag of holding. He checked it for a bit before jumping onto the back of the mosquito beast and went toward the direction of Hao Fen. His next objective was to go into the foreign battleground to gather enough wandering souls to make more devils and to make the final preparations for going into the celestial realm. There was a large formation in the center of Hao Fen. This was a single-direction transfer array that opens every 500 years for the disciples that are inside the foreign battleground to return. On this day, a person appeared outside of this formation. This person was wearing white, seemed gentle, and looked like the son of a rich family. His eyes were like the stars and his skin was as white as pearl. He studied the structure of the formation. This person was Wang Lin. It would still be several years before this formation opens, but he couldn't wait all those years. He decided to use this formation and his status as a soul devourer as a guide to attempt a reverse transfer. After studying the transfer array for several days, he pondered a bit, and then his eyes lit up as he changed the formation a bit and walked inside. He spread out his origin soul as it slowly merged with the formation. The symbols on the formation slowly lit up and gathered on his body. Slowly, Wang Lin disappeared. The moment he disappeared, the formation shattered and couldn't be used anymore. Several years passed. At a transfer array in a rank cultivation country in the south, all of the cultivators gathered there, waiting for a messenger from the rank cultivation country to open up the tunnel to the foreign battleground. Sun Wen was a cultivator from the rank cultivation country of Gongsun. He was here to be the messenger. Although he was only at the late stage of nascent soul, his family was a big deal in Gongsun, so he was sent here to gain experience. Today was the first time he had ever opened the tunnel to the foreign battleground, so he was a bit nervous, but he was mostly enjoying the looks of admiration from everyone else. The like button for the VIDEO has dropped to 5th place. Tears brimming and wishing for the like button for the VIDEO. Chapter return. The sun was high in the sky. Sun Wen was wearing a blue robe, and his hands were behind his back as he sat on a dragon chair that was floating in the air. Beside him stood two very beautiful girls. One of them was holding a big umbrella, providing him shade, and the other was holding a blue porcelain bowl containing ice-cold plum soup. On the ground stood countless cultivators from this country. All of them were focused on waiting for the foreign battleground to open up. Among those people were the elders of various sects and their top disciples. They were going to train inside the foreign battleground in order to raise their cultivation level. Of course, there were also a few disciples that no one liked that were going to be thrown into the foreign battleground to let fate decide their life and death. Time slowly passed. Although it was very hot, since these people were cultivators, their bodies could bear the heat, so they didn't seem tired at all. There were several young disciples that looked up at Sun Wen with looks of admiration. Sun Wen enjoyed these kinds of gazes very much. He waved his hand and one of the girls immediately brought the bowl to him. He grabbed the spoon and ate a plum along with some soup and immediately felt a cool sensation spreading across his body. This plum wasn't a normal plum but a special herb that grew in Gongsun. Just drinking a mouthful would help increase one's cultivation by a considerable amount. This was especially true for specially made soup like this one. It was like the nectar of the plum. There was no doubt that Sun Wen was someone who liked to enjoy himself. As of this moment, 45 minutes had passed. Sun Wen put down the spoon and said, "You all know the rules of the foreign battleground, but I have an extra rule myself. Everything brought out must be examined by me before you can take it. Remember it well." The moment those words were spoken, everyone agreed. However, although some of the nascent soul cultivators agreed, they were all sneering in their hearts. Sun Wen slapped his bag of holding, and 5 pieces of jade flew out. He bit his finger and dripped blood on the jades before throwing them forward. Suddenly, the 5 pieces of jade shot out, forming 5 rays of golden light, which then became a circular pattern. He chanted some weird words and the golden light released by the jades intensified. After a few seconds, Sun Wen took a deep breath. Sweat had appeared on his forehead. He took out a jade bottle, dumped out some pills, and ate them as he looked at the jades with a proud expression. The 5 pieces of jade's golden light became brighter and brighter until a vortex appeared in the middle. The vortex devoured the golden light and became bigger and bigger. Not long after, all of the golden light disappeared, leaving only the black vortex, which seemed really out of place. Waves of cold air blew out from the vortex. If one looked closely, they would see broken weapons, scattered materials, and corpses floating on the other side. Sun Wen coughed as the proud expression on his face became more obvious, and he said, "Today," just as he said those words, his eyes suddenly locked onto the black hole and revealed a shocked expression. At the same time, every cultivator on the ground sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at the vortex in terror. They saw an arm reach out from inside the vortex and grab hold of its edge. Suddenly, a hole was ripped open in the vortex, and a young man in white walked out. The moment this person appeared, the blazing sun was suddenly blocked by clouds, and the sky darkened. Sun Wen was stunned. With his heart pounding, he instantly noticed that he couldn't see through the cultivation of the person that walked out of the foreign battleground. But he did grow up inside a rank cultivation country, so he had seen a bit. After a bit of deduction, he concluded that this person must be at the soul formation stage. He quickly stood up from the dragon chair and went up to Wang Lin. He bowed and said, "Junior Sun Wen from Gongsun greets Senior." The person that walked out from the foreign battleground was obviously Wang Lin. After he walked out, he looked confusedly at his surroundings until he focused his gaze on Sun Wen and asked, "This place is Gongsun?" Sun Wen shivered as Wang Lin looked at him. He felt like all of his thoughts had been seen through. He quickly replied, "This place is not Gongsun but the training location for Junior. This is the rank 3 cultivation country of Wu Wen." Wang Lin pondered for a while. He had seen Wu Wen on the map before. This was a small country at the southern end of the planet. The Sea of Devils was half a planet away, so it could be said that the trip back would be very long. Wang Lin had traveled very far in the foreign battleground in order to collect wandering souls. He looked at everyone below him, and then disappeared. After seeing Wang Lin leave, Sun Wen let out a sigh of relief and wiped the sweat off his forehead. When he saw this person, he got the same feeling as when he would meet his family's ancestor. He wasn't in the mood for showing off anymore. After quickly leaving behind a few words, he left as he needed to report this to the family right away. In his view, a soul formation cultivator that could walk out of the foreign battleground must have been someone well known. When Wang Lin reappeared, he was at the top of a mountain. This mountain was called Sky Piercer. It was the highest mountain in this country according to the map. On the top of the mountain, Wang Lin began to ponder. After years of using them, he didn't have many top-quality spirit stones left, and they were very rare in Suzaku. He decided to not use them to travel anymore. He would save them as a last measure. This trip to the foreign battleground was very bountiful. It seemed that when his origin soul formed, his soul devourer power also seemed to have evolved. He gently rubbed his brow and let out a faint smile. He felt very confident in this trip to the celestial realm, as long as he doesn't meet any late-stage soul formation cultivators or that genius of Shui Yu. As for the mid-stage soul formation cultivators, he was 100% confident he could defeat them. Even if he were to meet a late-stage soul formation cultivator, he would still be able to safely escape thanks to all of the preparations he had made. In truth, there was another reason besides obtaining celestial spiritual energy that made Wang Lin prepare this much to preserve his life. For a cultivator to enter the Rain's celestial realm, they must lower their cultivation level to soul formation at most. If they use more power than soul formation level power, the space around them will collapse. This means that there is a high chance of soul transformation cultivators being in the Rain's celestial realm. Although there won't be many of those people, there will still be a few of them. Even if they must restrain their cultivation level to soul formation, they are not people normal soul formation cultivators can deal with. This is why Wang Lin had prepared so much for this trip. As for the legendary ascendant cultivators that rarely showed themselves, it is very unlikely for any of them to show up in the Rain's celestial realm. These were Wang Lin's deductions based on his years of cultivating, his understanding of Suzaku, and the difficulty of reaching the soul formation stage. Although this wasn't exactly accurate, it was not far from the truth. In truth, Wang Lin's guess was still a bit too high, as there were only 4 ascendant cultivators on Suzaku. 2 of them were at the early stage, 1 was at the mid stage, and the last one, the one who inherited the name Suzaku, was at the late stage. The 4 of them would not casually leave Suzaku, and did not care about the affairs of the cultivation countries. There weren't many things that could move them. These 4 would only act when they were cultivators from another planet making a mess. Wang Lin took a deep breath. The spirit beasts and devils were all prepared. Even the fan with only 2 feathers had been refined by him in the foreign battleground. As for those 3 mysterious sword sheaths, they had also been refined by Wang Lin's origin soul. In addition to all of those, of the 10 instruments from the ancient cultivators, he had managed to break the seals on 3 of them in the past few years and made them his own. Inside his bag of holding was only one thing that he was still unsure of. It was a scroll that he had gotten off a random cultivator inside the Sea of Devils. The moment he opened the scroll, there was only darkness, but there was a dangerous aura that came out of the darkness. Wang Lin had only opened this scroll 3 times. The first time was when he had reached the core formation stage. The second time was when he had reached the nascent soul stage, and the third time was recently, when he reached the soul formation stage. Every time he opened it, it felt different, but there was always a mysterious force that would cause his heart to shake. Wang Lin let out a sigh as he waved his hand, and the scroll appeared in his hand. As for who exactly he got this scroll from, he couldn't really remember. He threw the scroll into the air as his origin soul came out and began to refine it. This was a habit he had gained in the past several years. Every time he refined the scroll, he would gain a bit more connection with it. A few hours later, the sky darkened. His origin soul returned to his body and he put away the scroll. The day when the celestial gate opens should arrive soon. There is only one thing left to prepare. However, this preparation will require some 100-year-old or 1,000-year-old trees. Wang Lin muttered to himself, and then he spread out his divine sense and scanned the entire country. Then he moved and disappeared from the spot. 3 months later, he had traveled through the 7 surrounding cultivation countries and collected some 100-year-old trees. Then he created a cave in a mountain somewhere and began making wood carvings. It was too hard to find any 1,000-year-old trees, so he wasn't able to locate any. Even 100-year-old trees were hard to find. Inside the cave, Wang Lin threw away all his trivial thoughts and completely immersed himself in carving. Forgot to mention, at the end of the month, wishing for the like button for the video. Chapter 293. The Celestial Gate opens. Another year passed. In that time, Wang Lin had made 8 wood carvings. These 8 wood carvings were exactly the same. They were all carvings of the old man with the passing of time domain. Along with the one he had made many years ago, he now owned a total of 9. Red veins were coursing through these wood carvings, but none of them ever touched each other. Wang Lin's eyes were calm. If he activates these 9 wood carvings, he should be able to activate the power of the passing of time domain, but it would be a slightly weaker than the old man's. He put away the wood carvings, took deep breath, and began to cultivate as he waited for the day the celestial gate opens. Time slowly passed and several years went by. Outside the cave the seasons passed, and one day the originally clear day was filled with colorful rays of light. Many oppressive illusions appeared in these rays of light. There was man or woman appearing in these illusions, but they wore very different clothes than those worn in Suzaku. Some were talking, some were laughing, some were using techniques, and some were flying through mountains. There were some never-before-seen beasts that would appear and disappear. Sometimes, even the legendary dragon and phoenix would appear. The same scene appeared in many locations across Suzaku. There was a cultivator with a rain cauldron in the places where this scene appeared. At this moment, in a rank 4 country in the southeastern part of Suzaku, a giant of the giant demon sect held a rain cauldron in his hand. He had a face that looked ancient. His body slowly rose, and as he floated up, his body slowly turned into that of an ordinary person. Below him, the elders of the giant demon sect all had a very serious expressions. All of you, rest assured, with the sect's treasure, I'll definitely obtain a lot of celestial spiritual energy. This person's voice was filled with confidence. At the northeastern end of Suzaku, in a mountain, a young man wearing beast skin was looking up at the sky. He too held a rain cauldron in his hand. He let out an evil smile, then floated into the sky. Below him, a black mass suddenly appeared. It released a loud hum. If one looked closely, they would see that this black mass was composed of small bugs that were only about the size of a thumbnail. At the southwestern part of Suzaku, a middle-aged man stood on a tower looking at the sky with a melancholy expression and said, "Tinger, the celestial gate has opened again. I'll definitely get you more celestial jades so that your body will be preserved for another 1,000 years. With that, his body floated into the air. His giant hand reached out below him and grabbed at the tower. The giant tower floated up and shrank until it was in his hand. Then he walked into the illusion. At the northwestern part of Suzaku, in the headquarters of the corpse sect, an old man with white hair floated into the sky. He let out a sigh and said, "What kind of difficult task is this? How could the corpse of a celestial be easy to get? This body of mine is going to be put to work." At the center of Suzaku was a place that was surrounded by the sea. This entire continent belonged to the only rank 6 cultivation country on the planet, Suzaku. At this moment in Suzaku, on a large altar in the center of the country sat a snow fairy-like woman. She looked up into the sky. Behind her followed 7 old people. "After I leave, the 7 of you quickly return to Shueyu." This woman's voice was calm, and after saying that, her body slowly floated into the air. At this moment, Wang Lin, who was inside the cave, opened his eyes for the first time in several years and muttered, "The celestial gate has finally opened." His body disappeared from the cave. When it reappeared, he was in the air. There was now something extra in his hand. It was the rain cauldron. The moment the rain cauldron appeared, it started to shine brightly, then it melted and became a sliver of celestial spiritual energy, which then carried Wang Lin toward the illusion. The celestial realm was broken, and the ancient celestials were dead. The entire celestial realm was broken into pieces in the catastrophe that happened a long time ago. The wind, rain, thunder, and lightning celestial realms each covered 4 different star systems, so whenever a celestial realm opens, cultivators from various planets will go inside it. However, the celestial realms had broken into many pieces, so there wasn't a high chance for them all to land on the same piece. Right now, in a rank cultivation country, a mesa-looking old man was eating a chicken leg while chuckling. "It has opened. If you properly use the straw hat that this old man gave you, you can preserve your life. You might die there if you don tea." Wang Lin was surrounded by the sliver of celestial spiritual energy as he floated higher and higher up. The country below him became smaller and smaller, and he got the same feeling as when he first experienced searching for his domain. However, it wasn't just his divine sense, but his entire body this time. Eventually, he saw the ground below him and the sea around the ground. Everything became smaller and smaller until he felt a thick layer of clouds above his head. This layer of clouds contained limitless power, and the pressure it gave felt like it could crush anything in the world. However, as the pressure bore down on Wang Lin, the energy around him glowed and a hole opened up in the clouds for Wang Lin to pass through. As he passed through the clouds, he felt a sense of danger. The passage was very small and it felt like he could easily touch the clouds if he stretched his legs. However, he knew that the moment he touches the clouds, the power inside the clouds would enter him and destroy him. This was the power of the heavens. Wang Lin took a deep breath and his eyes lit up. He wondered what would happen if his main body was here. Would his main body, which had gone through 2 ancient god transformations, be able to withstand this pressure? This was a question that will remain without an answer unless he tests it out with his main body. Soon, under the guidance of the power of the celestial energy, he left the clouds. After he left, he finally relaxed a bit, but his heart began to pound. What he saw was the real outer space. He had seen space many times through the ancient goddess memories and when he was searching for his domain, but this was the first time he had experienced it in person. This feeling was very different from before. The vast space and the bright stars gave Wang Lin the feeling that he could go anywhere he wished. He lowered his head and saw that Suzaku was now a large sphere, but as he went higher, it became smaller and smaller. So it's like this Wang Lin seemed to realize something. Just at this moment, 5 pillars of light flew out from Suzaku. 3 of them were also looking at the planet as if they had realized something. Wang Lin felt the celestial energy around him moving him closer to the other 5 people until they formed a hexagon. The distance between them wasn't too large, but it couldn't be considered small either. Wang Lin was able to immediately see that the only woman among the 5 was the genius of Shuayu, who had managed to reach the late stage of soul formation in only 100 years, Red Butterfly. His expression was calm as his gaze calmly swept past them. It was within his calculations that Red Butterfly would appear, and she had never seen his true appearance before. As for the other 4, one of them looked very powerful. He was not wearing a shirt, revealing his shocking muscles. He almost didn't look like a cultivator. He was more like a mortal martial artist. However, between this person's eyebrows was the shape of an axe that appeared and disappeared. After seeing this axe, Wang Lin was able to confirm that this person must be from the giant demon clan, and that his position in the clan must be pretty high as well. Another person looked like a youth, but his eyes revealed bloodlust and ruthlessness. Wang Lin withdrew his gaze after one look. This person's aura felt similar to his main body but slightly weaker. If his main body was here, he would be able to pressure this person with killing intent alone. What caused Wang Lin's pupil to shrink were the last 2, especially the white-haired old man. This person's eyes were closed. He had a hand behind his back and showed no expression on his face. However, this person gave off this carefree feeling. It was like he was taking a stroll in his own backyard right now. This person suddenly opened his eyes as Wang Lin looked at him and faintly smiled at Wang Lin. Wang Lin looked at this person for a while before moving his gaze to the last person. This person looked middle-aged. He had a gourd in his hand, and he occasionally drank from it. His eyes were devoid of everything. It was like nothing could bother him. He didn't show any reaction when Wang Lin looked at him. Wang Lin took a deep breath. Every one of these 5 people were powerful. As Wang Lin observed the 5 of them, the other 4, besides the middle-aged man that was drinking, also looked at each other. However, no one talked the entire time. Wang Lin suddenly realized that he had unknowingly become an expert on Suzaku. The fact that he was able to leave the planet and go to the celestial realm proved this. Aside from the old man and the middle-aged man, the other 3 didn't underestimate him at all. They were actually on guard against him. Wang Lin let out a faint smile. At this moment, he felt very proud. Who would have thought that the little boy from the mountain village would be able to get this far? Recalling the past, Wang Lin could say that every step he took contained a life-and-death situation. I forgot to say, the latest 3 chapters are all 4,000-word major chapters. Is Leo that kind? So this is the moon god. Is it the like button for the video? Do you all also start the video? Chapter intimation. The 6 pillars of light connected and formed a hexagon before quickly flying into the distance. Soon, a giant golden door appeared before Wang Lin. This door was simply too big to describe. When people stood next to it, they looked like ants. There was a giant word carved onto the gate. According to ancient god Tusius memories, it was the word for rain. This was the rain celestial realm gate. However, there was a handprint on this door, and it was surrounded by cracks. There were countless broken platforms below the gate. There were already several people there, and almost all of them were on their own platform. After the 6 of them arrived, the light surrounding them disappeared and threw them forward. Wang Lin moved back a bit and landed on a platform 100 feet wide. As for the other 5, each one of them also chose a platform to stand on. He looked around and his heart couldn't help but skip a beat as he noticed that all of the different sized platforms had the same texture. If he carefully looked at the edges of some of them, they would fit perfectly together. As a result, Wang Lin guessed that countless years ago, before the celestial realm collapsed, there was a very large platform here. After seeing the handprint on the gate, he couldn't help but wonder how much power must have been in that technique to leave a print on the celestial gate. The sliver of pride Wang Lin had just gained disappeared after he looked at the gate. Compared to these mysterious presences, he was still struggling at the bottom. After a while, several more people appeared and landed on various platforms. There was a wide range of cultivation levels among the cultivators, with even nascent soul cultivators showing up. This confused Wang Lin greatly. Gradually, as more and more people arrived, there weren't enough platforms. One of the black-clothed youths looked around and found that no more platforms were open, so he landed on one next to an old woman. This platform was about 300 feet wide. Not to mention 2 people, it had enough room to fit people. But the moment the youth landed on the platform, the old woman's eyes lit up, and she said, with a raspy voice, "Scram!" The youth's face became cold. He was about to speak, but the old woman frowned. Her hand reached out and grabbed at him. Suddenly the young man screamed. He quickly backed up and barely dodged the danger. His expression was very ugly as he looked at the old woman, turned around and landed on another platform nearby. On that platform sat a middle-aged man. He was one of the people that came with Wang Lin. He was just sitting there, drinking by himself, and didn't seem to care that there was an extra person on the platform. The black-clothed young man pondered a bit before sitting down on the edge of the platform. His eyes lit up, and he would occasionally look at the old woman. Not long after, another person arrived. This person's face was gloomy. He was at the early stage of soul formation. After he arrived, he noticed that all of the platforms were taken and immediately flew to the side. No one knew if it was intentional or not, but as luck would have it, he flew toward where the 6 people from Suzaku were at. His body appeared on the platform that the man from the giant demon clan was on, and coldly said, "Move out of the way." The man from the giant demon clan looked at him with a dismissive look. Then his body suddenly swelled up, and he became a giant. He stood up, looked down at the terrified person, and said, "There is no room." As he spoke, the axe imprint on his forehead rapidly flashed. The person looked at the man from the giant demon clan with dread as he muttered. Giant demon clan, his body slowly moved away from the platform. The next moment, he appeared on the platform that the genius of Zhui Ye, Red Butterfly, was on. The man from the giant demon clan looked over with interest. This person landed on Red Butterfly's platform, looked at her, clasped his hands, and left. He noticed that this Red Butterfly was at the late stage of soul formation. She was not someone he could mess with. Thus he floated in the air and his gaze swept past everyone around. He gave up on the white-haired old man after one look, and as for the middle-aged man, he gave up too because there was already another person on the platform. Finally, he picked the 2 platforms with Wang Lin and the young man whose eyes were filled with bloodlust. He gave up on the young man because he didn't look like someone who was willing to give up easily. This could lead to a big battle, and that was not the result he wanted. And Wang Lin looked like a weak scholar who seemed easier to bully. This person's eyes lit up and he arrived at Wang Lin's platform. At this moment, even the middle-aged man who was drinking raised his head and looked over. The man from the giant demon sect also looked over. The interest in his eyes deepened. Red Butterfly kept feeling like she knew this scholar-looking person, but couldn't seem to recall anything. Even she looked over to try to see if she could see through something by looking at his techniques. The young man filled with bloodlust and the white-haired old man also looked over. After all, Wang Lin also came from Suzaku like them. The person stood on the platform Wang Lin was on and coldly said, "Fellow cultivator, please leave this platform and find another one." Although his voice was cold, after consecutive setbacks, his arrogance had lowered a lot. Wang Lin's eyes were calm as he looked at the person and didn't say a word. He waved his hand and a bracelet popped off his hand and transformed into a large toad. The moment this toad appeared, the person's expression changed as he exclaimed, "Thunder Toad!" This Thunder Toad was only one of Wang Lin's treasures, so he wasn't afraid of exposing it. The stuff he had in his bag of holding were his real aces, so he didn't mind using this Thunder Toad to intimidate people. If people were to fight Wang Lin in the future and prepare for his Thunder Toad, then they wouldn't be prepared for his real killer moves. Moreover, it was obvious that power was everything here. If he didn't give a good display of power, then there would be countless more troubles in the future. This was also why Wang Lin decided to bring out this toad. The moment the Thunder Toad appeared, its stomach swelled up and it shot out a ball of lightning. The person quickly backed up as his hand formed seals and a yin and yang wheel appeared. The wheel smashed into the ball of lightning. The person coughed out a mouthful of blood, but the yin and yang wheel was able to cause the ball of lightning to shrink a great deal and bounced it back. The Thunder Toad opened its mouth and swallowed the ball of lightning, then looked at the person with caution. Wang Lin secretly sighed. He knew that every soul formation cultivator had their own methods, especially ones that could come here. That yin and yang wheel had a powerful neutralizing effect to neutralize a great deal of the ball of lightning. It has to be said that the Thunder Toad was at the level of a soul formation cultivator. Although still a bit away from late-stage soul formation cultivators, it had at least the power of a mid-stage soul formation cultivator. Although its ball of lightning lacked a domain, its power was up there. That person flew out very far. He looked at the Thunder Toad with dread and couldn't help but let out a bitter smile. He clasped his hands at Wang Lin and no longer tried to find a platform. He then sat down cross-legged in the air. Wang Lin was every surprised at how willing this person was to let it go, but he wasn't sure if this was real or an act. The genius from Xianxia's eyes focused on the Thunder Toad for a bit before withdrawing her gaze. As for the man from the giant demon clan, his eyes were filled with the urge to fight as he nodded at Wang Lin. It seemed he acknowledged Wang Lin's power. As for the old man, he rolled his eyes and withdrew his gaze. Only the young man with bloodlust in his eyes looked at the toad with a hint of dread. His entire cultivation method was based on insects, so he was very weary of a creature that could spit out lightning, especially a toad. The middle-aged man let out a sigh and said, "Thunder Toad one ear, I saw a Thunder Toad again. Sadly, it is not the same person from back then." Wang Lin waved his right hand, and the Thunder Toad turned back into the beast trap. Everyone who saw this became silent, but all of them would occasionally look at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's gaze remained calm as he waved his hand and a gourd appeared. He took a gulp before lowering his head and began to think. Not long after, a burst of noise came from the Celestial Gate. The noise was small at first, but soon was enough to match a thunderstorm. As the rumbling continued, the Celestial Gate slowly opened. Waves of golden light came out of the gate and lit up the entire area. After a while, the Celestial Gate opened completely. All of the surrounding cultivators stood up and flew inside without a word. They all disappeared inside the Celestial Gate. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, but he didn't immediately go in. Only after waiting for the 5 from Suzaku to go in did he casually enter as well. The moment he passed through the door, he felt a powerful aura coming from the celestial realm. This aura had no killing intent, and just flew past everyone who entered. Gradually, the Celestial Gate closed. At the same time, a small jade cauldron appeared before Wang Lin. He took a deep breath, grabbed the jade cauldron, and put it into his bag of holding. Before he came here, he did some research about the celestial realm. He knew that this was a return cauldron. At certain locations, he could spend 1 hour activating it, and it would allow him to return to the cultivation planet he came from. It's been a long time since wishing for likes on the VIDEO. The little pig wishing for the like button for the VIDEO support. Chapter 295, The Broken Celestial Realm. After putting it away, Wang Lin saw numerous swirls. There were cultivators entering them and disappearing. Wang Lin's body moved, and he charged into a swirl. He gradually disappeared inside it. There was blinding light shining into his eyes, and he felt like he was falling from the sky. However, he forced his eyes to stay open, and saw something that he will never forget. Below him were pieces of golden fragments scattered around like a mirror that had fallen on the ground and shattered. The celestial realm was like a shattered mirror. Now that all of the celestial spiritual energy had disappeared from the celestial realm, Only a small amount of it remained in each fragment of the celestial realm. As Wang Lin's body rapidly descended, the pieces got larger and larger. Soon, Wang Lin was able to detect that he had landed on a fragment near the edge. The moment he landed, he quickly slapped his bag of holding, and a brass bell appeared in his hand. This was one of the 3 treasures from the ancient cultivators that he was able to refine. This treasure had the ability to change its size to trap the enemy. After landing, Wang Lin looked around and was shocked. The ground contained no signs of life. There was only dead grass. The mountain in the distance had its peak cut in half. The cut was very smooth, so it was clear that it was cut by someone. Below the mountain were some palaces, but they had all been turned to rubble. The other half of the peak had fallen on top of the palaces. From a distance, they looked like one big mountain linked to a smaller mountain. On the ground there were many bottomless pits. Some of them even spat out white gas that slowly floated into the air. This was a dead world. Wang Lin pondered for a while and muttered, "This is the celestial realm?" Despite knowing the fact that the celestial realm had been destroyed, even when he was standing here, Wang Lin still couldn't believe it. In ancient times, when one reached the soul formation stage, they would hear the call of the celestial realm. To cultivators, the celestial realm was a holy place, a sacred place that shouldn't be violated. But now Wang Lin looked at his surroundings and couldn't help but become silent. After a while, he looked at the palaces in the distance and moved toward that direction. Although it didn't look far, after flying for a while, Wang Lin noticed a force coming from the sky. This force made it very hard to reach a certain speed while flying. Wang Lin arrived at the palace after a long time. He was shaken from seeing the ruins up close. From looking at the ruins, Wang Lin could see just how rich the celestial realm was. The only material used to build these palaces were spirit stones. Although Wang Lin had seen buildings made of pure spirit stones back in Chu, where Li Muwan lived, compared to this, the difference was too great. Wang Lin couldn't see the end of the palace in the distance. Just from looking at the ruins, one could see how amazing this place was before it was destroyed. However, after all these years had passed, all of these spirit stones had lost their energy. In fact, many of them would turn to dust the moment they were touched. Wang Lin let out a sigh. So this, the celestial realm. While walking through the ruins, Wang Lin couldn't help but begin to ponder. This area didn't have any of the celestial energy he was looking for. There was only sadness. In the center of the palace, Wang Lin stopped and was terrified at the scene before him. The area was completely caved inwards. After looking carefully at it, he could see that it was a handprint. Wang Lin was stunned. The moment he saw the handprint, he thought of the handprint on the celestial gate. The power of one handprint was able to destroy such a wide area. Wang Lin believed that he could do it back on Suzaku too, but this was the celestial realm. Everything in the celestial realm was much tougher than things outside, and this place was filled with cultivators at the soul formation stage or above who had been cultivating celestial spiritual energy. If all of this was factored in, then this handprint was very scary. Wang Lin crouched down next to the handprint and touched it with his hand. Suddenly, a powerful death aura came out and entered Wang Lin's body through his arm. Wang Lin's life and death domain suddenly activated. After a long time, he took a deep breath. The terror in his eyes became even stronger. He just felt that the handprint still had remnants of the user's aura left, so he experienced it after touching it. However, the more he felt, the more he realized just how powerful the user was. After standing up, Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He flew into the air and pressed his hand down at the same area. After a long time, he shook his head, moved around the handprint, and continued to walk around in the ruins. After walking through the ruins for several days, he found a broken stone tablet with some words carved onto it. Gifted by the fifth reign celestial emperor to celestial scholar Xianxia, the tablet roughly said that celestial scholar Xianxia had accomplished a great deed, so the celestial emperor made these palaces for him as a reward. The palaces were built in the form of a formation that would attract celestial spiritual energy from 100,000 kilometers, making cultivation several times more effective. After he finished reading, Wang Lin couldn't help but feel shaken again. Although he didn't know what rank a celestial scholar was, it certainly was below the celestial emperor. If a mere celestial scholar could have a palace like this, then what would the palace of the celestial emperor be like? Just as he was about to leave, his eyes lit up. He suddenly turned around and stared at the stone tablet. The stone tablet looked very normal. It didn't have anything extraordinary about it. But Wang Lin's gaze swept past each word. Why did celestial scholar Tianhua want to have his palace built here? Also, this tablet was a decree, which should be placed on the outside for everyone to see, so why was it here? This area belonged to the inner part of palace. For this stone tablet to be here, it seemed kind of fishy. Wang Lin frowned as he raised his hand and pointed at the stone tablet. A beam of QI shot out and landed on the stone tablet. Suddenly, the cracks on the tablet became even larger. Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and a flying sword came out. Under his command, the sword hit the stone tablet. Sounds of metal colliding could be heard. Although it had been damaged by the power of that handprint, the stone tablet was still very tough. After a long time, the stone tablet was finally cut off from its base by the flying sword. Wang Lin looked at the base of the tablet, but couldn't find anything abnormal. However, he still felt like there was something off about this stone tablet. His eyes lit up as he grabbed the stone tablet and pulled. The area rumbled as the stone tablet was slowly dragged up by Wang Lin. The year of the dragon is approaching. Leo's year is coming fast, fervently shouting for the like button for the VIDEO, wishing to be drowned in happiness by the likes for the VIDEO. Chapter 296, Celestial Spiritual Energy. As the stone tablet was dragged out of the ground, the area that was below ground come into view. The walls of the underground area were of a different color from the walls above ground. They looked like they were soaked in water, but there was no sign of water nearby. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. According to logic, this place had already been deserted for countless years, and although there were many fragments of celestial realm, every time the celestial gate opened, people entered. Therefore, even if there were fragments that no one had stepped on before, they were very rare and hard to find. Basically, most of the celestial realm fragments had been visited by cultivators before. This stone tablet was a sign that was normally placed outside, yet it was here, near the center of the palace. Adding on the fact that there were marks indicating that it had been buried underground for a long time, Wang Lin finally began to understand what was going on. This stone tablet must have been moved by a cultivator during one of the earlier openings of the celestial realm to hide something. Otherwise, those marks at the bottom half of the stone tablet wouldn't have been there. If it was left unmoved, then the bottom half would have eventually dried and started to crack. After confirming this idea, his eyes lit up and he raised his arm. The last few feet of the stone tablet that were underground were pulled out by Wang Lin. The moment the stone tablet was pulled out, a sliver of celestial spiritual energy came out from underneath. There wasn't much. The moment it appeared, it was about to disappear. Wang Lin revealed a happy expression as he quickly trapped this celestial spiritual energy and refined it. Just at this moment, a sonic boom was suddenly heard from a distance as something flew across the sky like lightning. This object was covered by an octagon-shaped formation. A green-robed cultivator with a flying sword behind his back walked out of the formation. The moment he appeared, he quickly flew toward the ruins as if he had a target. Wang Lin immediately noticed and frowned. However, he ignored that person's speed and focused on refining the celestial spiritual energy. That sliver of celestial spiritual energy became a drop of liquid after being refined by Wang Lin for a while. Wang Lin knew that celestial energy had to be refined by a cultivator into a spirit stone state so that it could be preserved. However, the time it took to refine them depended on one's cultivation level. That green-rob cultivator's speed was very fast. When he noticed that something was wrong, his face suddenly changed and he shouted, "Stop!" He used some unknown technique and his speed became even faster. Wang Lin ignored him, because that green-robed cultivator was the same cultivation level as him, early-stage soul formation. He didn't see the cultivator as a threat at all, and only calculated the time of that person's arrival as he focused on refining the celestial spiritual energy. When the green-robe cultivator saw that not only did Wang Lin not stop, but he sped up the refining process, he angrily shouted, "This area was found by my Dalu Sword Sect 3,000 years ago. If you don't stop now, my Dalu Sword Sect will come for you." The cultivator's voice came from the distance. Although Wang Lin could only hear some of it, he understood the general idea. He sneered. How could everything already have an owner, especially something like celestial spiritual energy? What that person was saying was really ridiculous. He waved his right hand. The bracelet quickly flew off his hand and transformed into a large green toad. The moment the Thunder Toad appeared, its abdomen swelled up and then it spat out a ball of lightning that flew toward the green-robed cultivator. That green-robed cultivator's face suddenly changed. He was very afraid of that ball of lightning. He slapped the sword behind his back, then the sword suddenly came out and shined like the sun while floating above his head. The green-robed cultivator formed seals and pointed at the ball of lightning. The sword slashed down, and then a thick and powerful sword QI descended from the sky. The speed of it was very quick as it landed on the ball of lightning. The ball of lightning was cut in half and fell to the sides, forming two craters with white smoke coming out of them. That green-robed cultivator's face turned red as he forced down the blood that was coming up his throat. This sword was one of the 7 treasure swords of the Dalu sword sect. If it was against someone weaker than him, he could easily control it. Even against someone with the same cultivation level, he could easily kill them with just the sword QI inside the sword. However, the Thunder Toad was like a mid-stage soul formation cultivator. While the ball of lightning had no domain, it was not something a normal cultivator could control. This was a unique attack skill given to the Thunder Toad by the weapon. Thus, he could only give it his all and win by harming himself. With the help of the Thunder Toad, Wang Lin finally finished refining the celestial spiritual energy. There was now a purple crystal the size of a grain of rice in his hand. This tiny crystal was equal to half of Zhao's spiritual energy condensed together. Feeling the spiritual energy inside, Wang Lin felt shocked. After he put the crystal into his bag of holding, he raised his head and coldly looked at the green-robed cultivator. Under this stone tablet hid one of the eyes of the formation. Although the formation had long been broken, it was still active. After a long time, it would still gather celestial spiritual energy, until it produced a sliver of pure celestial spiritual energy. That Dalu sword sect must have placed the stone tablet here, because they were afraid of someone else finding it. Every time the celestial gate opened, they would send someone here to harvest celestial spiritual energy. The reason they didn't use any restrictions and used a stone tablet instead was because they were afraid of someone noticing. No matter how well the formation was made, there would still be traces of it, and there will always be people with heavenly cultivation who could easily see through it. In the end, they decided to place a stone tablet here and place no restrictions. This way, it will be harder to find. Wang Lin sneered as he placed his right hand over the hole and viciously pinched. Crackling sounds could be heard as the eye of the formation was broken. It could never be used again, since he had already offended this Dalu sword sect by taking their celestial spiritual energy. He might as well destroy this eye so that they couldn't come here to collect more and create more powerful cultivators. The green-robed cultivator stared at Wang Lin. He let out a roar, then pointed at Wang Lin. The sword turned toward Wang Lin, and the sword QI twice as large as last time fell down from the sky as if it were going to split the heavens in two. After sending out this sword QI, he coughed out blood and his body weakened greatly. He didn't even look at the result and immediately left. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Without a word, he pointed at his brow, causing black gas to come out. The gas turned into wandering souls. They charged forward and collided with the sword QI. At the same time, the Thunder Toad let out a roar. Its abdomen swelled up again and it spat out another ball of lightning a bit larger than the last one. "Wanna run?" Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and took out a small flag. This restriction flag that had reached the first stage of completion was very strong. It turned into black smoke, surrounded Wang Lin, and quickly carried him forward. That sword key was first hit by over 100 wandering souls. Although the wandering souls were instantly destroyed when they touched the sword Q, the power of over 100 wandering souls couldn't be taken lightly. The wandering souls made the sword Chi shrink by 1/5 of its original size and made it dim down. Afterward, the ball of lightning collided with the sword QI. The ball of lightning dissipated, but the sword Chi shrank to a small fraction of its original size. There was no longer any light coming from it after it collided with the ball of lightning. Eventually, Wang Lin charged out. Because he was under the protection of the restriction flag, the sword QI no longer had any power to stop him and was destroyed by several restrictions. Wang Lin didn't slow down at all. With the protection of the restriction flag, he charged after the escaping green-robed cultivator. As the green-robed cultivator escaped, he spread out his divine sense and was shocked by what he saw. He would not have dared to believe even in his wildest dreams that this person would be able to destroy his sword Q so easily. How could he not be shocked? Wang Lin's expression remained the same. That sword was very weird, and it had very powerful sword QI within. If it wasn't for the fact that he came fully prepared, he would have been wounded by that sword QI today. Wang Lin once again realized that no soul formation cultivator that could enter the celestial realm should be underestimated. While surrounded by the restriction flag, Wang Lin's speed was very fast. The distance between him and the green-robed cultivator quickly shrank. The green-robed cultivator's face was gloomy. He used that secret technique again and his speed increased greatly. He arrived at the spot where he had landed and quickly formed a seal. Seeing the formation appear, he relaxed a bit. Once he gets inside the formation, he could go to another fragment. There were many fragments, so the person chasing him wouldn't be able to catch up. He sneered. Just you wait. This time, my Dalu sword sect has 4 people who entered the celestial realm. Once I find my senior brothers, we will come and kill you together. You won't be able to leave the celestial realm. 6,000 words in a major chapter, wishing for sharing, for likes on the video. Chapter died before it was born. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and his body suddenly disappeared inside the restriction flag. However, it was very hard for the green-robed cultivator to notice. After all, the green-robed cultivator was only at the early stage of soul formation, while Wang Lin's divine sense was on the level of a late-stage soul formation cultivator's divine sense. Although the two had the same cultivation level, the difference between their divine senses was too large. This was why Wang Lin was able to detect the green-robed cultivator the moment he appeared, but the green-robed cultivator wasn't able to detect Wang Lin until he got closer. He took one step into the formation before turning around to look at the black fog that was coming at him. The cold look on his face became even colder. However, just at this moment, Wang Lin's figure suddenly appeared above the formation, and just as he appeared, he threw out a bell. The green-robed cultivator's face suddenly became pale. He never would have thought that Wang Lin was this fast. This pause allowed the bell to cover the green-robed cultivator and trap him inside. After that, Wang Lin waved his hand. The restriction flag and the bell quickly returned to him. His body disappeared in the air, and when he reappeared, he was on the ground. You won't be able to run away, Wang Lin plainly said, as if he was talking to himself. He sat down on the ground and his hand formed various seals that landed on the bell. That bell suddenly started to shake, which caused it to ring. Most of the ringing sounds remained inside the bell. After a short while, miserable screams came from within it. After a short period of time, the noise from the bell became even louder. Aside from the ringing of the bell, there were sounds of collisions coming from inside it. The cultivator clearly wasn't willing to be refined. He was using his sword to attack the bell. Wang Lin knew that the sword was sharp, and it was unknown whether or not the bell could withstand it. He let out a cold snort, and his hand moved even faster. As more and more seals landed on the bell, the ringing became louder and louder, but the sounds from inside the bell became lower and lower. This bell was a magic treasure from the ancient cultivation world. Its main ability was to trap people and then use a series of seals to refine them. The bell could even refine origin souls, but the requirement was for the user to have a higher cultivation level than the person trapped inside, or else they would suffer from backlash. After a soul formation cultivator forms their origin soul, unless attacked by many people at once, it is hard for them to die in a one-on-one fight. However, if a late-stage soul formation cultivator acts, all of that changes. Of course, if they were already greatly weakened, it is a different story. Just like how back then Hunchback Meng was greatly weakened and then tricked by Wang Lin. In the end, he died to Hurricane Devil Lord's golden arm. As Wang Lin's seals landed on the bell one by one, the miserable screams gradually weakened before eventually disappearing. Wang Lin kept on creating seals for a while before finally stopping. He waved his right hand and the bell shrank. It then flew into his hand and he put it away. He wasn't in a rush to open it, because he knew that even though the cultivator had died, he must have set up some sort of retaliation before his death. The retaliation of a soul formation cultivator before death was very scary, so with Wang Lin's caution, how would he dare to check it? He decided to keep refining for another 10 days, half a month, or even longer, until everything has been refined. This move of Wang Lin's was very unique. He stood up. The Thunder Toad had already turned back into the bronze bracelet and returned to his wrist. He then pondered for a little while. Just as he was about to carefully search this fragment, his expression suddenly changed. He took out the restriction flag to protect himself and quickly sat down after throwing a few pills into his mouth. The spiritual energy inside his body was rapidly being absorbed by the bronze bracelet. After a long time, it finally stopped and Wang Lin opened his eyes. He threw a few more pills into his mouth and finally recovered all of his spiritual energy. Wang Lin muttered, "At the start, it was once every 6 days, but now it is every 4 days. Although this thunder toad is useful, keeping it really costs too much spiritual energy. In the future, I will have to pour spiritual energy into the bracelet ahead of time, because if this happens in a fight, it will be dangerous." He stood up and flew toward the palace. After finding nothing in the palace, he broadened his search. The fragment he was on wasn't really big, but it wasn't really small either. It was about the size of Zhao. Although he could cover the whole fragment with his divine sense, celestial spiritual energy wasn't something his divine sense could detect unless he was close by. Wang Lin spent 1 month searching this fragment. He found that besides that palace, there was no other building around. There were many holes in the ground that clearly showed the struggle the Celestials went through when the celestial realm fell apart. One day, Wang Lin arrived at the only other mountain on the fragment. However, the shape of this mountain was very strange. It looked like a big lock. This mountain was in good shape, but all of the trees on it were long dead. When Wang Lin touched a branch on one of the trees, it immediately turned to dust. Looking at the many trees on the mountain, Wang Lin bitterly smiled. If only these trees were still alive. Each one of them was a 1,000-year-old tree. Some were even 10,000-year-old trees. If he were to use these trees to make wood carvings, Wang Lin believed that the power of the wood carving would increase several-fold. Unfortunately, Wang Lin was unwilling to give up as he searched around. After checking every tree on the mountain, he helplessly sighed. On the top of the mountain, Wang Lin found a cave. This cave's door had already been destroyed and was filled with dust. The place didn't look well hidden, and Wang Lin didn't expect to find a cave that no one had come to before. The cave wasn't very large. It only had 7 or 8 rooms. Wang Lin checked the cave but found nothing. Someone must have come and emptied it out years ago. Before entering the cave, Wang Lin was already prepared. Although he had found nothing, he wasn't disheartened. The reason he came inside the cave was to see if he could find any remains of restrictions. He wanted to see what the restrictions used by Celestials looked like. If he could study some, it would help a lot with reaching 9,999 restrictions on the restriction flag. After careful inspection, he found that most of the restrictions had disappeared, but this was not true for all of them. He happily found that in one of the rooms there were some remains of a restriction. This restriction must not have been very strong. It was used only to seal a door. Although it had already been broken, there is a sliver of it left on the side of the door. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he started studying it. The Celestials' restrictions were similar to the ancient restrictions Wang Lin knew, but there were still differences. In truth, restrictions were just formations but much more dynamic. 3 days later, Wang Lin left the cave. The sliver of the restriction had already been completely memorized by him. He came down the mountain. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly found that all of the trees on the mountain had turned to dust and disappeared. But now, all of the dust was floating in the air and moved as if it were being controlled. Wang Lin's expression remained the same as he slowly flew into the sky. He looked down from above, and his expression suddenly turned serious. Looking at the dust cloud from his position, it seemed to form 2 words. "Save me." Wang Lin frowned. The dust slowly disappeared. From above, the mountain looked even more like a lock, and the cave looked like the keyhole. Wang Lin pondered for a bit, but he didn't go back to check. This place was very strange, so he wasn't willing to keep exploring. More importantly, he believed that he wasn't the first person to notice that something was off about this mountain. If so, why was this mountain still here? Thinking about this, Wang Lin became even more unwilling to check. He slowly backed up and left. Even if a celestial was locked here, Wang Lin still wasn't willing to try anything if it involved risking his life. Wang Lin had already thoroughly searched the fragment over these past few days and didn't find any more celestial spiritual energy. Thus, he decided to go check out another fragment. Before he left, he poured spiritual energy into the bronze bracelet. After arriving at the transfer array the green robe cultivator had used, he pondered a bit before taking out the bell. The method to leave the fragment, according to Wang Lin's knowledge, was to keep flying up until he passes the barrier in the sky. Then he would be returned to the starting point, where he could enter a swirl and be randomly placed on another fragment. But the method this green-robed cultivator had used to appear on this fragment was very strange. He arrived via a transfer array. This made Wang Lin make a bold guess. Some ancient sect was able to set up a few transfer arrays after entering the celestial realm so many times. These transfer arrays would allow the disciples of that sect to travel between the fragments the sect had been to before. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He threw the bell out before him and started to form more seals. After 2 more days, Wang Lin estimated that even if this soul formation cultivator had set some retaliation after death, it was just about gone by now. Thinking about this, he waved his right hand, and the bell slowly enlarged. With a bang, rainbow-colored smoke came out from the bottom of the bell as it opened. Wang Lin saw that inside, there was only a bag of holding and a sword. But suddenly the sword hummed and a ray of sword Q the size of an arm shot out. Wang Lin sneered. He pointed with his finger and the sword Q-eye disappeared. Along with it was a scream as the last bit of origin soul disappeared. The green-robed cultivator had placed his origin soul inside the sword in order to attack one last time before death. However, after being refined for so long, his origin soul couldn't handle it anymore. His last-ditch effort was easily stopped by Wang Lin. Nearly 3,800 words, already quite long. Day by day people say it's short, look at others. All are 2,000 words a chapter. Leo is that long, wouldn't you cast a like for Leo's video? Chapter 298, Phantom. After picking up the ancient sword, he scanned it with his divine sense and immediately became excited. He took a deep breath before putting the sword into his bag of holding. This sword was very powerful. However, he never thought that the sword S structure would be similar to the restriction flag S. There were numerous restrictions placed on the sword, and they were all pure attack. Restrictions. As a result, this sword was very powerful, and therefore useful to Wang Lin. Wang Lin skimmed through them, and noticed that most of the restrictions were ones he had never seen before. These restrictions were in groups of 3 with a total of 300 groups. This large number of restrictions was not something Wang Lin could learn in a short period of time. He contained his urge to immediately study them and took out the green-robed cultivator S bag of holding. He scanned it with his divine sense, and then his expression became strange again. After a long time, Wang Lin sighed. Killing people for treasures in the celestial realm is indeed tempting. There were only 3 items inside the bag of holding. The first item was a piece of jade, the second item was the returned cauldron, and the last item was a bundle of top-quality spirit stones. There were hundreds of top-quality spirit stones. Even with Wang Lin's ability, he couldn't help but become excited at hundreds of top-quality spirit stones. He looked about and couldn't help but mock himself. It seems my ability is still not good enough. In truth, it was hard to blame Wang Lin because top-quality spirit stones was so rare on Suzaku. There weren't a lot of top-quality spirit stones on the planet. The Dalu sect was from either, but the Dalu sect was a old sect that was tens of thousands of years old, so they naturally had stocked up quite a bit. After reading the jade, he completely understood the situation. The Dalu sect had found a total of 37 fragments in the celestial realm after entering it so many times. They then secretly placed transfer arrays on each one of them. However, the transfer arrays were built in the celestial realm, so they couldn't be activated by normal spirit stones. This was also why the green-robed cultivator had so many top-quality spirit stones on him. After this, Wang Lin understood that a lot of cultivators who entered the celestial realm belonged to big sects like the Dalu sect and had their own transfer arrays set up all around. Only those that came here for the first time, or independent cultivators, would fly up and randomly land on a fragment. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he looked at the return cauldron. The function of this cauldron was to return to the planet they came from. So if Wang Lin were to use this, would he return to Suzaku or to the Dalu sect? Wang Lin pondered a little before putting it away and making sure to keep it apart from his own return cauldron. If he were to accidentally use the wrong one and really got transported to the Dalu sect, it would be very dangerous. After finishing all of this, Wang Lin threw the jade he was holding forward and moved it with his divine sense. Suddenly, the jade began to shine as a formation with 2 grooves appeared. Clearly, these two grooves were for spirit stones. Without a word, Wang Lin took out two top-quality spirit stones and accurately threw them into the grooves. The formation began to move as the jade glowed even brighter. The image of a map eventually appeared. This image wasn't foreign to Wang Lin. It was the same scene everyone saw as they descended into the celestial realm, which now looked like a shattered mirror. In this image, there were 37 fragments that were glowing, creating a contrast against the countless gray fragments. Wang Lin looked at the image and recalled the fragment he had fallen down to. His eyes quickly moved and found where he was currently located. His right hand pointed at one of the fragments. The image disappeared and the formation activated, then Wang Lin's figure disappeared. On one of the fragments at the end of the celestial realm, the wind was very violent and there was a large rift in the sky. Chilly wind blew out from the rift and into that fragment. It was as if the entire fragment was shrouded in the rift's power. This place didn't have any mountains. It looked like a desert. This place originally had mountains and rivers, but during the collapse of the celestial realm, one of the celestial's treasures fell here and created that rift. As for the treasure, it shattered after creating the rift and turned into a violent wind that blew across the fragment. At this moment, in the middle of this violent wind, a formation appeared in the sky. The formation formed a pillar of light that blocked the wind, but the pillar was shaking violently. It was as if it could shatter at any moment. Wang Lin's figure appeared in the formation. He took a look around and frowned. This fragment was simply too different from the last one he was on. If that one was considered relatively intact, then this one was completely destroyed. According to logic, there should be no reason for the Dalu sect to place a formation here. Wang Lin pondered a bit. He saw the pillar shaking violently, so he quickly charged out of the formation. The moment Wang Lin walked out of the pillar, he felt the blade like wind hitting his body. After he left the formation, it quickly hid itself using a special method. There was only one sound that could be heard, the howling of the wind. It sounded as if there were countless people crying. As Wang Lin descended, the sound got even louder. The moment he landed on the sand, he suddenly became alert. He quickly turned around and saw that within the howling wind, black figures appeared, one by one. Wang Lin's heart was shocked when he saw the black figures, but his divine sense felt nothing. Without a word, he slapped his bag of holding and took out the restriction flag. At this moment, the black figures became clear, causing Wang Lin to make a strange expression. These figures were all extremely beautiful women. The women wore beautiful rainbow-colored dresses, and behind him was a group of boys holding trays with celestial fruits and delicious wine. There were people talking and laughing as they walked toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin frowned harder. He saw that these people were talking but heard no sound from them. The surroundings were still filled with the howling of the wind and nothing else. Gradually, these people got closer and closer. Then Wang Lin noticed black figures that appeared above them. These figures were young men flying on clouds. They looked like they were guarding these women as they scanned their surroundings. Wang Lin took a deep breath and put away his restriction flag. Those people were now in front of him. He didn't dodge or avoid them. He simply let them walk right past him. One of the boys directly walked through Wang Lin's body. After this group of people was off in the distance, Wang Lin let out a bitter smile. He had already noticed that these people weren't real. They were just illusions. He guessed that there was a mysterious power on this fragment that could create illusions of scenes from the celestial realm before it was shattered. Wang Lin looked at the people that had just left and felt sorrow. Those people must have been important during their time, but now everything was gone with the wind, and the only thing that remained was an illusion. What exactly happened to the celestial realm to destroy it to this degree? This question once again appeared in Wang Lin's mind. After pondering for a while, he followed the illusions. These people walked farther and farther until they finally stopped at a location. Wang Lin looked from a distance and suddenly noticed the scene change. A building suddenly appeared. There were many tables inside with fruits and wines placed on them. There were a few people sitting around the tables talking to each other. Every now and then, they would wave their finger and techniques would appear as if they were debating about something. Wang Lin watched this scene and especially paid attention to all of the techniques shown. He took a deep breath. These people didn't use any chants or seals. They simply waved their hands to use techniques. It was as if the power of the heavens were in the palms of their hands and could be used as they wished. One of the people suddenly stood up and angrily yelled at someone. Then his hand reached out and created a giant ball of purple lighting. He pointed up, and the ball of purple lightning slowly ascended into the sky. Wang Lin followed the ball of lighting, but at the same time the clear sky suddenly turned dark. Patches of black lighting gathered into a fist and slammed into the ball of purple lightning. The ball of lightning suddenly shattered and the fist of lightning descended without slowing down. The expression of the people inside suddenly changed. Two people responded quickly and went outside to check, but the fist made of lightning had already descended. The power of that one punch instantly obliterated the bodies of all the celestials inside along with the building. Only the two people that flew out were able to protect themselves with a rainbow-colored light. The expression of the two changed greatly, and at this moment, a blue sword QI flew across the sky and created a giant rift. Waves of cold wind blew out of the rift. Shortly after, a giant hand appeared in the sky and gently pinched the sword inside the blue sword QI. The sword shattered and disappeared into the rift, but the sword's hilt wasn't destroyed. It kept flying across the sky. The last day of June, wishing for the like button for the VIDEO. A sweep of the like button for the VIDEO each month. The June ticket expires tonight at 12. Chapter 3 Test. Wang Zhuo was dazed by the scene before him. It took a long time for him to recover his senses, and the amount of arrogance in his heart had shrunk. At that moment, several rainbow-colored swords flew toward them. For each sword that dissipated, there was a Hang Yu sect disciple, each followed by several 15-year-olds. There were both male and female youths. As they landed, they too had similar expressions to Wang Lin's group, as they stared at the scene in front of them with different expressions. All of the Hang Yu sect disciples that brought the youths gathered at the side and started talking about the youths. After waiting for a while, all the other youths who had been recommended arrived at the sect. A black-clad middle-aged man scanned the area. He emotionlessly said, "Among the lot of you, only a few will be selected to be Hang Yu sect disciples." All of the youths cried out in shock. Wang Lin's heart shuddered. He counted a total of 48 people taking the test. Cultivation, the path to becoming an immortal, depends on your natural talent. The first test is to see whether or not your spirit is strong enough. Now whoever I point to will come up and take the test. The middle-aged man emotionlessly pointed at a youth. The youth's legs trembled. He walked over carefully. The middle-aged man put his hand on his head and said, "Not qualified. Stand to the left." The youth suddenly lost all strength. Face looking bleak and eyes blank, he moved to the left in silence. Then, another youth was pointed at. He moved forward with a fearful expression. Not qualified. 10 people in a row all failed the test. Up until now, there was still no one to the right of the middle-aged man. It was Wang Zhuo's turn. All of his previous pride had disappeared from his face. Looking pale, he stepped forward. After the middle-aged man put his hand on Wang Zhuo's head, his face suddenly lit up and asked, "What is your name?" Wang Zhuo quickly replied respectfully, "Immortal Hui Bing, my name is Wang Zhuo." The middle-aged man nodded. He smiled and said, "So, you are the one martial teacher mentioned." "Good." Wang Zhuo, stand to the right. Wang Zhuo felt exultation and walked toward the right under everyone's admiration. His eyes were filled with arrogance and contempt as he looked at the crowd. He felt untouchable. "Motherfucker, he is one lucky dog," Wang Hao murmured to Wang Lin while curling his lip. Wang Lin's heart became more tense. In front of his eyes rose his parents' eyes, filled with expectations. He tightened his fists. "Not bad." "You also stand to the right," said the middle-aged man, surprised, to the young girl in front of him. After a short period of time, almost all of youths had been tested, and only 2 stood to the right of the middle-aged man. Wang Hao was up next. Wang Hao quickly ran up to the middle-aged man. Before he could even start the test, he knelt to the ground and kowtowed a few times. He said, "Immortal Hui Bing, may you enjoy a long life. My name is Wang Hao. You already tested so many people. You must be tired. Why don't you rest for a while?" "I am in no rush. It's no problem." The middle-aged man laughed out loud. Testing so many people whose faces were filled with fear, yet this clever youth here, without the slightest bit of fear, was trying to win favor with him. He pressed his hand on Wang Hao's head and said, "Spirit is lacking not." The moment Wang Hao heard his spirit was lacking, his heart plummeted. Without waiting for the middle-aged man to finish, he quickly pulled out a jaded box and presented it in front of him. Wang Hao wisely said, "Immortal Hui being, my father found this by accident in the mountain, but was unable to open it. I especially brought it to give to Immortal Hui being." The middle-aged man chuckled as he shook his head. He was about to refuse Wang Hao, but as he scanned the box, his pupils suddenly contracted. His face suddenly lit up. "Not bad. This is an at least 300-year-old mushroom." Looking at the jade box, it was sealed by a cultivator. "No wonder your father couldn't open it." He paused, then said, with a slightly faltering voice, "I am in need of a helper for my pill concoction. Are you willing to be my helper?" Wang Hao, surprised, got up quickly. The difference in treatment was like heaven and earth, causing him to be very excited. He exclaimed, "Yes, Immortal Hui Bing, I am willing," the middle-aged man said, while chuckling. "Being my helper, I won't mistreat you. You can cultivate just like the other disciples. Go stand to the right." Wang Hao was very excited in his heart. He ran to the right side and faced Wang Zhuo with a triumphant stare. The faces of all the youths that failed turned pale. All of them felt very depressed. A few even started crying. The middle-aged man frowned. He shouted, "Send away all those who started crying." A few of the Hengyu sect disciples stepped out. They quickly took the ones that started crying and casually disappeared in swords of light. The middle-aged man pointed at Wang Lin. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He nervously walked toward the side of the middle-aged man. His mind was completely blank. Praying silently in his heart, he couldn't help but remember the expectations in his parents' eyes. "I will definitely be selected," Wang Lin thought, with determination. The middle-aged man's hand pressed on his head. With a deadpan face, he said the two words Wang Lin dreaded the most. "Not qualified." Wang Lin didn't remember how he had made it to the left side. He only heard the spring thunder roaring in his ears and echoing the two words the middle-aged man had said. After a moment, everyone had been tested, and only 3 people stood to the right. In the eyes of everyone else, the 3 were insurmountable and immensely tall. Wang Zhuo looked at Wang Lin with face full of contempt, fully expressing his disdain for him. While a strong spirit is needed in order to be a cultivator, perseverance is even more important. Even ordinary students like you with enough perseverance can become a sect disciple. The second test is perseverance. The middle-aged man paused, then said, with a deadpan face, "Follow the steps up. If you reach the top, you are qualified. If you not finish within 3 days, you fail. Those who fail will be returned to their families. If you cannot endure any longer or meet danger, just yell out loud, and someone will come and save you." The middle-aged man smiled to the 3 on his right and said, "You too, follow me to meet the patriarch. We will also find you masters. Wang Hao, you don't need to go. Come with me to the pill house so you can get used to the place." After the middle-aged man finished giving instructions, he took the 3 selected youths and disappeared into the mountains. Wang Lin took a deep breath. His eyes were full of determination. He walked up the stone steps with no hesitation and started the test of perseverance. Aside from the 3 selected youths and the 6 crying youths who were taken away, 39 remained. Among these 39 youths, the ones that were very depressed, the ones very determined, and those who were scared all walked towards their own future. In dreams, Leo sees his video standing in 3rd place on the popular charts. Hoping to garner more fan support and looking for help from you all to climb even higher in the rankings this month. Chapter 29, Locked Door. Without waiting for that person to finish, someone on the side angrily said, "Zhao Xiao Air, back then you mocked him the loudest." Brother Wang, don't listen to him. Zhao Xiao Air's expression changed. He angrily said, "Zhao Xiao San, I am your older brother, you backstabbing bastard. Go back to your room and see how I'm going to beat you up." "I am loyal, Brother Wang. You re a kind person, please give me some easier work." Brother Wang don't listen to those 2 brothers. They are known for this 2-man act. Who knows how many honorary disciples they cheated? "Apprentice brother, I am the person who has never said a bad thing about you." A very pretty female honorary disciple delicately said, "Brother Wang, this apprentice's sister has always had a weak body and can do any hard labor. How about I come and give you a massage every night? Is that okay?" Among the honorary disciples of the Hengyu sect, there weren't many female disciples. Only about 10% were female. After all, in the test of perseverance, males had a better chance. The few female honorary disciples were of course well received by everyone. Based on their looks, Some even got favored by inner disciples. Then another female honorary disciple threw a pretty look at Wang Lin and flirtatiously said, "Apprentice brother. Brother Lu never gave me any hard work. I only ever came to serve him at night. I know a few other apprentices, sisters. I'll take them to see you tonight, okay?" Everyone was desperately trying to tell Wang Lin that they had never said anything bad about him. After listening for a very long time, Wang Lin ran out of patience and shouted, "All of you, shut up. What a mess this is." After he finished speaking, he pointed at a person and said, "You, 20 vats of water. If you unhappy, go to the elders." That person's body quivered. He opened his mouth to talk, but saw the impatience in Wang Lin's eyes. He immediately smiled and nodded his head. "You, wash 500 kilograms of clothes every day. Remember, if you dissatisfied, go find the elders." The person who was pointed at swallowed hard and almost passed out. He muttered, 500 kilograms, that's like all the clothes in the sect added together. "You, clean the whole sect. Same thing, if you dissatisfied, go find the elders. You, clear the outhouses If I see one fly in there, you can living in there. You, go gather 500 pounds of herbs a day. If you mix weeds in there to trick me, I'll kick you out of the sect. All of you listen, if you dissatisfied, go find the elders." For some, while the workload was hard, it was still bearable. However, for the last few he pointed at, their legs grew soft and immediately collapsed on the ground. All the honorary disciples wore pitiful expressions. The entire Heng Yue sect might not even have 500 kilograms of herbs in the mountains. Based on Wang Lin's memories of the people that had mocked him, he pointed at them one by one and carefully thought about what jobs to give them. He wasn't tired at all, and finally finished assigning all the work. He lounged around for a while and thought that the chores that he assigned were impossible to finish. What could the honorary disciples do other than go complain to the elders? But just in case the elders decided not to do anything, it'd be better to make this mess even bigger, to let them know that it was a big mistake to make me, Wang Lin, in charge of the chore house. Thinking about it, he pointed at a person he didn't know and said, "You in luck. Your job is to keep track of everything. Make a list of all the gifts given to me. Record their names and time of gift. If you try to be greedy, I'll kick you out of the sect." That person was so surprised he immediately fell to the ground and kowtowed to Wang Lin. He repeatedly said that he would remember to do it correctly and not make a mistake. All the honorary disciples were dumbfounded. Before, Disciple Lu was secretive about it, but this Wang Lin was boldly asking for bribes. A moment later, an honorary disciple stepped forward and took out 3 talismans used for visiting home. He presented them to Wang Lin and said, "Brother Wang, this is me paying my respects to you." Wang Lin replied with a sound. He put the talismans away and asked, "What job were you assigned earlier?" "Gather 20 vats of water a day," the person nervously replied. Wang Lin slowly said, "Then, do 5 vats a day instead." That person was surprised and immediately expressed his thanks. Following that person's lead, everyone else got up and were about to step forward when Wang Lin slowly stood up and said, "All of you leave. You all need to follow the proper process of giving gifts. Write down your current job and your desired job on a piece of paper, then send it to the person I appointed to manage this. You can only do it once in 10 days. After he finished, he went back into his room and closed the door. The people in the yard were sighing. Some even had anger in their eyes. Their stomachs were full of curses directed at Wang Lin, but none of them said them out loud. They all dispersed with long faces. After they left, Wang Lin came out of the room and explored the entire chore house. He found a remote door to a storage room. The storage room was not large. After Wang Lin cleaned it up, although he was disappointed, this was the most secluded place here. He cleaned up to make some space, then locked the door and entered the dream space. Time flew by. Wang Lin had already been in charge of the chore house for 2 months. In those 2 months, besides assigning jobs to the honorary disciples for the first few days, the rest of the time he focused on his cultivation. As for the chores of the honorary disciples, he didn't care at all. If they didn't do their jobs, all he had to do was snort coldly and they would offer him gifts. Wang Lin was very annoyed during those 2 months. His cultivation was constantly getting interrupted by the honorary disciples. He didn't know what the other inner disciples and elders were thinking. He messed things up this much, but they still hadn't sent a replacement. From yesterday until now, Leo has only slept for 2 hours. Can't take it anymore. Today there's only the first watch. Leo wants to catch up on sleep. After the salon ends, the missing chapters will be compensated. You are listening to a completely free audiobook on the Leo Audio YouTube channel. If you enjoy the story, please like the video to motivate the channel. Support Leo with a cup of coffee through the description link or on the screen. If you want to hear any other stories, just comment and let Leo know. Thank you very much for watching the video. Chapter 299, Battling Red Butterfly. Then the illusion changed. This time, many celestials flew into the sky with faces filled with anger. But, just at this moment, the hand that shattered the sword flipped around and plummeted to the ground. A ray of silver light suddenly flew out from the hand and went toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin was absorbed inside the scene and was suddenly shocked. The moment the silver light appeared, he became alert and threw out the beast trap. The thunder toad appeared, spat out a ball of lightning, and collided with the ray of silver light. After a series of rumbles, the thunder toad backed up 100 feet. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy as he jumped onto the thunder toad and went to the woman behind the silver light. Wang Lin slowly said, "Red butterfly!" When he was immersed inside the illusion, this woman suddenly appeared and attacked him without a word. If Wang Lin's divine sense hadn't already reached late-stage soul formation level, then he would have thought that the silver light was part of the illusion and would have been killed on the spot. Red Butterfly's expression was cold as she stared at Wang Lin and said, "You indeed know me. Speak. Who the hell are you?" Wang Lin's expression remained calm as he said, "Who doesn't know Shue's genius?" Red Butterfly coldly said, "Not going to say? Then you might as well remain here forever." With that, she raised her right hand and a ray of silver light appeared in her palm. She coldly stared at Wang Lin. Wang Lin laughed out loud. His eyes lit up, and he said, "I heard that Red Butterfly managed to reach the late stage of soul formation in just 100 years. Although 100 years isn't long, it's just a lifetime for mortals. I wonder, are your parents still alive?" Red Butterfly frowned. She waved the silver light in her hand, and then the sky was suddenly covered with specks of silver light. The light started to rain down upon Wang Lin. Wang Lin slapped the thunder toad, then its abdomen swelled up and it spat out a ball of lightning. The ball of lightning floated into the air. Then Wang Lin shouted, "Explode!" Suddenly the ball of lightning exploded and rays of lightning blocked the specks of silver light. This allowed Wang Lin time to quickly retreat. As for the thunder toad, after it spat out the ball of lightning, it quickly retreated with Wang Lin. While Wang Lin retreated, he shouted, "Red Butterfly, do your parents have any other children? If not, then doesn't that mean they have no one to send them off? That means you lack filial piety." Red Butterfly frowned again as she coldly looked at Wang Lin and charged after him. She waved her right hand and a flying sword suddenly appeared above her head. The flying sword shot out after Wang Lin at several times her flying speed. There was hint of a domain inside the flying sword. The flying sword contained such a powerful emotionless domain that snowflakes began to appear around the sword. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He slapped his bag of holding, and the restriction flag appeared. Black fog suddenly surrounded the area. The fog formed the shape of dragons and charged at the flying sword. Subsequently, Wang Lin didn't retreat anymore. Instead, he disappeared inside the black fog. When he reappeared, he was a dozen feet behind Red Butterfly. His hand formed a seal and the spiritual energy in his body moved, and a black and white swirl appeared. At this moment, the life and death domain expanded from this swirl. Red Butterfly frowned again and said, "Know your place." With that, she raised her right hand and grabbed at the air. Suddenly, 5 rays of cold energy shot out from her finger and formed 5 snowy mountains, all of which fell toward Wang Lin. "This snow is born in the sky and dies on the earth." Wang Lin's eyes remained calm as the black and white swirl activated. Although the enemy was a late-stage soul formation cultivator, since she wanted to kill him, he must at least give her a fight. The life and death swirl suddenly enlarged. The 5 snowy mountains immediately began to melt, and by the time they descended upon the swirl, they had already shrunk to less than half of their original size. The moment they collided, a sliver of emotionless domain entered Wang Lin's body, causing him to cough out a mouthful of blood. The blood immediately turned to ice after leaving his body. Wang Lin could feel that his body was surrounded by coldness. His memories of his family and loved ones started to fade. Wang Lin's heart didn't panic. He knew that once all these memories were gone, he would become an emotionless killer. This would become a seed in his mind for Red Butterfly to control his life and death. The life and death domain activated in his body. Scenes of when he turned into a mortal, the U.S. parents' lives and deaths, and various experiences as a mortal solidified in his heart. Using this moment of clarity, Wang Lin shouted, 100 years. An entire lifetime in the love of one's parents is not something the heavens can erase. Red Butterfly, even if your parents have entered the reincarnation cycle and are already watching you from behind, do you dare to turn around and look? Although Red Butterfly's expression remained the same, Wang Lin could feel that the emotionless domain in his body had weakened a bit. The life and death domain cycled through his body rapidly as his body disappeared. When he reappeared, he was on top of the Thunder Toad. He then quickly retreated. Wang Lin waved the restriction flag in his hand, and 100 dragons made of the restriction smoke charged toward Red Butterfly. Wang Lin used a few breaths of time to force the emotionless domain out of his body so it could no longer harm him. His expression was dark, as what had just happened was very dangerous. If anything had gone wrong, he would have become part of the cycle and no longer have the right to compete with the heavens. A late-stage soul formation cultivator's domain is really powerful. Wang Lin took a deep breath. In truth, the moment Red Butterfly sneak attacked him, their battle had already begun. Wang Lin had seen the ice heart tactic. The key was to expel all emotions, and then to crush and refine them until one reaches a state of no emotion. This was Red Butterfly's Tao heart. From the day he had first seen the ice heat tactic, Wang Lin thought about how Red Butterfly had reached the late stage of soul formation in only 100 years. On one hand, it showed how powerful she was, but on the other hand, it was also one of her greatest weaknesses. Without time to practice one's Tao heart, they simply can't compare to the old monsters who had lived for much longer. Also, with only 100 years, there was no way to completely erase all of her emotions. This was why Wang Lin brought up her parents. Only by making her remember the past and feel a sliver of emotion for Wang Lin to use to break her Tao heart could he have a chance of winning. But this woman's Tao heart was firm, and wasn't affected by Wang Lin's words. Only when Wang Lin activated his life and death domain to resist her emotionless domain did he realize that his words were working. Although he didn't say much, and the effect wasn't obvious, his words planted a seed in her heart. If she can remove this seed, she will never reach the soul transformation stage. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He knew that with Red Butterfly's talent, this seed won't last long. However, if he repeatedly touches that weak spot and proves that his life and death domain is the real path, while her emotionless domain has flaws, then this woman will no longer be scary. Red Butterfly didn't care about these dragons that were charging toward her. The moment the dragons got close, Red Butterfly's origin soul came out, and she waved her hand. A ring of blue light expanded, and then all of the dragons turned to ice. She stared at the direction where Wang Lin had retreated to, and her eyes became even colder. She understood what Wang Lin's intentions were. Originally, it wouldn't be an issue, but Wang Lin's domain was very strange. He had managed to obtain a sliver of life and death from the reincarnation cycle. The moment the snowy mountains landed on the swirl, she clearly felt the life and death domain enter her body, causing memories of the past to be brought back. Although she was able to quickly remove those images, Wang Lin's words entered her ears. Even if they have entered the reincarnation cycle, they are watching you from behind. The moment those words came out, Red Butterfly's memories became chaotic. Although it only took a moment for her to clear them up, she had also missed the chance to kill him. A mere early-stage soul formation cultivator, but he indeed is interesting to try to ruin my Tao heart. This person can be allowed to live. Red Butterfly's eyes returned to normal, and she chased after Wang Lin. While Wang Lin ran, he waved his hand and put away the Thunder Toad. However, a late-stage soul formation cultivator's speed was far above an early-stage soul formation cultivator's. Soon, he felt slivers of cold energy appear behind him. Wang Lin took a deep breath. Just as he was about to escape, his mind suddenly went blank, and he remembered that giant handprint that he had seen in the palace. He tried to understand it, but failed in the end. As he ran, the image of the handprint became clearer and clearer in his mind. He suddenly remembered the illusion he was shown, specifically the handprint that crushed the sword and descended upon the land. The illusion of that handprint quickly merged with the image of the handprint from the palace. Under this strange state of mind, Wang Lin's body suddenly flew up and he quickly climbed up the sky. Red Butterfly sneered as she chased behind him and thought, "It doesn't matter if you run forward or up, you won't be getting away that easily." Wang Lin rose up into the sky and suddenly stopped. He looked at the ground as if he had realized something and gently pressed down with his hand. Suddenly the sky darkened and various streams of energy gathered under him, forming a giant palm right below Wang Lin. The palm pressed down toward Wang Lin. For the first time, Red Butterfly's expression changed. She wanted to dodge, but the palm was very big and it arrived very quickly. It went through Red Butterfly's body and landed on the ground, creating waves of dust. She was shocked and quickly checked her body to find that nothing was wrong. She didn't know that this palm of Wang Lin's had no power, and was only him trying to understand the handprint. Aimlessly wishing for the like button for the video. Chapter Celestial Jade. 1. After throwing out the palm, all of the spiritual energy inside of Wang Lin's body disappeared. Due to the beast trap, he was pretty used to this situation, so he quickly chowed down some pills. Before the pills even fully dissolved, he took out the jade, opened the formation and randomly picked a location. When Red Butterfly raised her head, Wang Lin had already disappeared. A flash of coldness appeared in her eyes. This person has access to a transfer array, so his identity must not be normal. Also, his Tao heart is strong. He's very cautious, has a strange domain, and endless amount of magic treasures. He must be the most elite disciple of a rank 5 cultivation country. Red Butterfly's eyes lit up as she turned around and flew off into the distance, looking for celestial spiritual energy. Wang Lin didn't carefully check the fragment he went to this time. He randomly picked one. When he arrived, he couldn't help but be startled. This fragment was like a world of fire with lava covering the ground. From time to time, there would be hot bubbles that burst and spread out a pungent smell. The sky was dark, and every now and then spatial rifts would appear. Wang Lin floated in the air as he looked around. This fragment was very different from the other 2 fragments he had been on. This fragment looked like it was ready to collapse at any moment, especially because of the spatial rifts in the sky that looked like the mouths of devils. Wang Lin frowned. He didn't know why the Dalu sect's transfer arrays were all set on these dangerous fragments. Did this mean that the more dangerous the fragment was, the more celestial spiritual energy there was? Wang Lin flew out of the transfer array with these questions in his mind. He had his divine sense spread out as he flew down to dodge the spatial rifts. Everything was fine until he was 100 feet from the ground and a spatial rift silently appeared beside him. Wang Lin was surprised because his divine sense didn't notice it at all. However, he wasn't new to the cultivation world, so he was able to quickly react. Just as the spatial rift appeared, he was able to force his body to move to the side. The rift appeared quickly but disappeared just as quickly. Almost at the moment it appeared, it disappeared. Wang Lin's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he looked to his side. A huge section of his clothes had disappeared as if it were eaten. He carefully looked around. At this moment, the amount of danger in this fragment could match the land of the ancient god. The way that spatial rift had appeared was simply too eerie. Wang Lin wasn't even able to detect it in advance. Wang Lin pondered a bit before slowly descending. He spent an entire hour descending those 100 feet. This position was a relatively safe altitude. There weren't many spatial rifts appearing at this height, and the heat from the lava wasn't very powerful. But Wang Lin's caution didn't lower one bit as he slowly moved forward. He wanted to see why the Dalu sect had placed a transfer array here. The surroundings weren't completely silent. Rumbling sounds came from the ground every once in a while, or the heat bubbles would burst. With these sounds intertwining with each other, it made people feel the heat in their hearts. As he flew, Wang Lin gradually learned the landscape of this fragment. This fragment wasn't very large. In fact, it was the smallest of the 3 fragments he had visited so far. Aside from the hole in the ground to the southeast, there was nothing else unusual about this fragment. After a long time, Wang Lin arrived above the hole. He looked down and saw that the hole was pitch black inside. Instant create. He pondered for a bit and didn't recklessly enter. Instead, he spent several days completely searching the entire fragment to make sure there was nothing abnormal before arriving at the hole again. His eyes lit up, and just as he was about to enter, a light appeared in the sky as a transfer array appeared in the air. Wang Lin revealed a joyous expression. He was just worrying about entering, but if there was someone else willing to go in before him, it would be a lot safer for him. At this moment, two figures appeared inside the transfer array, and each of them had a sword behind their back. After they walked out, one of them immediately said, "Sixth junior brother, this is your first time here, so you must pay attention to the spatial rifts. Remember to always have the full search tactic activated." The person beside him quickly nodded. Then the two of them carefully flew toward the hole. On the way down, many spatial rifts appeared near them, but the two seemed to be able to detect them somehow and always moved out of the way ahead of time. The speed at which they descended was several times faster than Wang Lin's. The cultivation level of both of them was early stage soul formation, so they weren't able to detect Wang Lin, whose divine sense had already reached the late stage of soul formation. The sixth junior brother looked at the hole in the ground and asked, "Third senior brother, is this the Celestial Beast Temple?" "That is correct. This place is one of the 16 Celestial Beast Temples. Ancestor found this place by accident after coming to the Celestial Realm many times, but this place should be known by many people. The last time I came here, there were 3 groups of people here looking for Celestial Beast souls," the third senior brother answered. Then he suddenly seemed to remember something and said, "Remember that you can use instant movement inside, so you must be careful." As the two talked, their bodies sunk and entered the hole. Wang Lin's shadow appeared outside. His body disappeared as he silently entered the hole. He spread out his divine sense to carefully check his surroundings and also looked to keep track of the two before him. "Third senior brother, after so many years, will there even be any celestial beast souls remaining? And even if there are any remaining, it would be hard to obtain them with just the two of us." "Sixth junior brother, you don't understand. If there are any celestial beast souls remaining, they would be very weak due to the lack of celestial spiritual energy for them to feed on. Once we find one and bring it back to the sect, we will have done a great deed for the sect." Back then, Ancestor was able to find a celestial beast soul here, united the planet Dalu, and made the Dalu sect famous. Wang Lin became excited as he listened to the two of them talk. Although he didn't know what the Celestial Beast Temple was, going by the name and what those two had said, he had his own guesses on what it was. This place should be the home of celestial beasts in the celestial realm. Not all of the celestial beasts had died in the disaster, and some remained to continue breeding. This was why this place had a transfer array. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he followed behind them. This hole wasn't very deep, so they quickly landed on the ground. The two quickly flew forward after they landed. Wang Lin spread out his divine sense and was shocked. This place was a very large cave. The structure was like a beehive with numerous entrances. He pondered a bit before flying toward one of the entrances. This entrance was exactly the one the two before him had entered. As he flew, he suddenly stopped as he saw with his divine sense that the two before him had stopped about 100 feet in front of him. Before the two was a stone statue about a dozen feet tall. This stone statue was that of a very large bird-like beast. Back then, Ancestor found the celestial beast soul here. "Junior apprentice brother, protect me while..."